and welcome to 2021 Cauayan Festival, First Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the Finals Battle. And of course, we would like to say thank you to our sponsors, MyPercom, Multisys, TM, DN Enterprises, LGU Cauayan, DepEd Cauayan, Isabela State University Cauayan Campus, Brigada News FM Cauayan, JCI Cauayan Bamboo, JCI Senate Isabela, Phil North TV Cagayan Valley, and CMD North Star Cable Vision. Likewise to our Cauayan Festival Production and Executive Committee, led by our Honorary Chairman, Mayor Bernard Faustino MD, Director General Michael De Guzman Sr., Assistant Director General Cesar JCD Jr., and City Council members led by Mayor, Vice Mayor Bong Dalin Jr., Councilor Cynthia Wee, Councilor Gary Galotera, Councilor Edgar De Luna, Councilor Egay Atienza, Councilor Porong Malilin, Councilor Paul Mauricio, Councilor Bagnos Maximo, Councilor Rufino Arcega, Councilor Balong Wee, Councilor Balong Asirit, Councilor Cesar JCD Jr., Councilor Victor BJD, Councilor Faustino Gapasin, and Councilor Charlene Quintos. And likewise to our first inter-school debate competition working team, led by the chairman, Mr. Narsal Foronda of Isabela State University, the Isabela State University Cauayan Debate Society, Direct Nil Simana Films, and the different debating teams from DepEd Cauayan, both public and private schools, led by Dr. Alfredo B. Gumaro Jr. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the 2021 Cauayan Festival in the new normal, First Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the Final Battle. And now, ladies and gentlemen, may we all rise for the opening prayer to be followed by the singing of our national anthem.
Hallelujah.
Diyos amang nasa langit, kami ngayon'y sumasamo, dinggin itong aming awit. Buksan ang iyong kaharian, at sa lupa ay liwanagan. Mahal naming Isabela, yakapin mo at alagaan. Bigyan kami ng lakas sa bawat hamon ng buhay. Sa aming mga sala ay patawarin, tulad ng pagpapatawan namin. Ilayo kami sa tuksong mapanghalina, ipagsanggalan sa lahat ng masama. Aming diwa'y punuin ng pagpapala, at bantayan ng mga anghel sa lupa. Isabela, naming
ang ating ipinagmamalaking bayan. Tahanan ng tahimik na mamamayan. Pagkakaisa at pagtutulungan ang masigsilayan. Sentro ng agrikultura, komersyo at kalakalan. Tulay sa bawat pangarap. Sinag patungo sa buhay na matiwasay at aalalay sa tatahaking magandang buhay. Kaagapay, talino, pagsisikap, dedikasyon, makasaysayang kwento ng pakikipagsapalaran. May pagmamalaki sa buong sambayanan. The ideal city of the North. Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, helos ang sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ang bagaw, ay ginagang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di magtitindig. Luman ang araw ng walang pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling ko. Ang inigaya na kantay mga aking, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please be seated. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, good morning po sa ating pong mga viewers, sa ating pong mga listeners, and of course, live po tayo sa Brigada News FM Cauayan at syempre sa lahat ng ating pong mga kababayan at kalunsuran dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan. Welcome po tayo sa ating pong celebration ng 2021 Gawa-Gawayan Festival. Syempre spearheaded of course by our Director General, Mr. Michael de Guzman Sr. and our Assistant Director General, Councilor JCD. And this morning, ladies and gentlemen, ay ito nga po yung pinaka-aabangan ng ating pong mga mag-aaral dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan dahil ito na po ang ating pong final battle ng ating pong first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD, the Inter-School Debate Competition, the finals. And now, ladies and gentlemen, ready na po ba kayo, lungsod ng Cauayan? And of course, ngayong pagkakataon pong ito ay akin na pong ipapakilala ang ating pong mga finalists sa ating pong first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the finals. Starting with the debaters team from Cauayan City National High School Main Campus. Debaters are the following: Desiree A. Quaresma, Cody Nicole N.D. Wee, Atina May R. Lucas, Aaron Bixel G. Kalimag, Mark Angelo V. Agustin, Elder Coach Renz Ian T. Dacuron, Billy Jake S. Manuel, and Cheryl D. Bakiran. Their school principal, Dr. Primitivo R. Gorospe. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the debaters team from Cauayan City National High School Main Campus. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our second team from Our Lady of the Pillar College, Cauayan. Debaters are the following: Kashimira Rohini Duria, Carrie Ann Garcia, Kathleen Grace Jacob, Gian Carl Vincent Mauricio, Kevin Robert Pilar Jr., and their coach, Mr. Joel P. Bembo. Their school principal, Loida Maria L. Bautista, and their school president, Dr. Exuperio June Flores. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, our second team from Our Lady of the Pillar College, Cauayan Campus. Our third team from Sillawit National High School. Debaters are the following: Homer D. Evangelista, Delmar Tanchanco, Maricris I. Cauzo, Ioli B. Ignacio, Christine H. De La Cruz. Their coach, Sir Romel S. Domingo, and their school principal, Madam Vilma C. Corpus. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, our third team, Sillawit National High School. And our fourth team, ladies and gentlemen, from Villa Concepcion High School, Baculod Extension. Debaters, Crizel May Acop, Robert Basada Jr., Trisha Jane Rina Blas, Jester Andres, Rodrigo Aguinaldo. Their coaches, Sheila May Pagulayan, Jonah May Agtarap, and Corazon Omnes. Their school principal, Sir Christopher Duran. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the team from Villa Concepcion High School, Baculod Extension. There you have them, ladies and gentlemen, the four competing schools for this first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a message from our Director General for this year's 2021 Cauayan Festival, Director General Mr. Michael D. Guzman Sr., Councilor JCD, the Assistant Director General and President of JCI Cauayan Bamboo, to be represented by Executive Vice President Kayla C.D., the Executive Director of Isabela State University Cauayan Campus, Dr. Priscilla C. De Lima, and the Division Superintendent of Division of City Schools of Cauayan, Dr. Alfredo B. Gumaru Jr., and of course, our multi-awarded city mayor to give his inspirational message, Honorable Bernard Faustino MD, our city mayor and the 2021 honorary chairman of this year's Cauayan Festival in the New Normal.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Sa ngalan po ng LGU Cauayan, sa pangunguna ng ating mahal na mayor na si Bernard Faustino MD, at sa bumubuo ng Executive Committee ng Cauayan Festival 2021, The New Normal Virtual Edition, kami po ay lubos na nagpapasalamat sa inyong lubos na kooperasyon at pakikisa sa ating selebrasyon. Maraming salamat po sa DepEd family sa pangunguna ni Dr. Alfred Gamaru, both public and private school. At maraming salamat din po sa Isabela State University, Cauayan Campus sa pangunguna ni Dr. Presi de Lima at Dr. Narsal Poronda na naging author sa kauna-unahang inter-school debate competition. Maraming salamat din po kay Konsehal Gary Galutera upang maisakatuparan ang competition na ito na talaga namang ipinakita ang talino at talento ng kabataang Cauayanyo. At salamat din po sa mga guro na naging tagapagpayo at tagapagsanay sa ating mga mag-aaral. Muli po, maraming salamat po. Mag-ingat po tayong lahat. God bless to all.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyla D and I'm the 2021 Executive Vice President for JCI Cauayan Bamboo. In behalf of our President, Honorable Cesar D, I would like to say congrats and welcome to the finals for the first Mayor Bernard MD's inter-school debate. I am very proud to hear that our students are bravely stepping up for this kind of competitions. This is one of the things that we are truly proud to see, and we are truly proud to uphold and execute, because we also believe that young leaders will be the future of Cauayan City. It's really great to see students today being bold and brave enough to step up and join these kinds of competitions. So in behalf of the whole JCI Cauayan Bamboo chapter, good luck to all of you and congrats in advance.
Good day everyone, especially to the members, staff, and all the debating team of the first ever Mayor Bernard D. Inter-School Debating Competition. Of course, our beloved Mayor Bernard D., our Vice Mayor Bongdalin, and all the city councilors, of course, especially to Sir Gary, the Committee Chair on Education, and other local officials, our partners from the local government unit, from the Isabela State University, and the Committee on the Cauayan. A good day to everyone. My congratulations to all of you, dear learners, students of these competing schools for the first ever Mayor Bernard D. Inter-School Debate Competition. I hope that this year's competition will be an experience all of you to experience and giving opinions and of course based on facts and based on your research and studies on how you present your ideas and your prepositions to the issues concerned. So to the administrators and the school heads for both public and private schools of these competing schools, my congratulations to all of you. Despite this very challenging time for all of us, with this present pandemic, we can still come up to this very good competition. And again, congratulations all of you. Stay safe as you present your views, opinions, and ideas pertaining to the topics or to the prepositions you are presenting your team. So again, congratulations, debating team, to all the coaches, and again to the local government unit headed by our Mayor, Bernard. Thank you for always honing the best interests of our learners to come up with this activity. Again, congratulations to all of you.
Good morning everyone. I am Bernard Faustino D., your City Mayor. Nais ko lamang po magbigay bati at magbigay pugay sa ating mga contestants, yung mga lumalahok or lalahok dito sa ating first ever Mayor Bernard D. Inter-School Debate Finals. Nais ko pong bigyan ng ngayon pa lang ng parangal yung ating mga contestants dahil this is very challenging, but it is also an inspiration to your local leaders that we have students such as you guys who are really updated with the current issues. Alam niyo po, napakalaking bagay na ang ating kabataan ay makilahok na sa mga current issues and current events that we are all facing. And this is not an easy task and I'm pretty sure may matututunan kami sa inyo. I'd rather watch a spiced up debate on current issues by our local students instead of our national leaders, kumbaga, di ba? So, I'm looking forward to learn and gain an inspiration to this entire process that we're encountering. Again, congratulations na po. Kahit hindi pa kayo nagwawagi, kayo na po ay panalo sa aming puso. Again, good luck and good day to everyone.
My warmest greetings to all Cauayenos as you celebrate the Cauayan Festival. The Cauayan is a celebrated festival renowned for the energy and vibrancy of its parade of dance and other activities. It is a celebration of the Cauayenos' solidarity and appreciation of the arts and culture. The people of Cauayan certainly deserves the pomp of celebrating Cauayan Festival amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I laud the organizers for coming up with an effective plan to celebrate the festival without sacrificing the safety of each and every one of us, making it clear that one can practice social responsibility and still have fun at the same time. As we adjust and try to make a peace with social distancing and self-quarantine, there are virtual performances you can enjoy from the safe confines of your home. Over the past few months, we have experienced an unprecedented shift in our way of life due to COVID-19. We know that adjusting to change can be challenging. We need to appreciate the challenges of the conditions forced on us by the pandemic. The virus teaches us to love and care, to be kind, and to be of service to others. We learn that we cannot be indifferent about the welfare of others. The virus teaches us that it infects others, that infection may be passed on to us. It teaches us that if we want to be safe, we need to keep others safe as well. It teaches us that in order to reduce our risk in contracting the disease, we must also reduce the risk to others. Thus, we need to protect ourselves and others. As the coronavirus pandemic continues to affect our country, we need to adjust to the new situation and adopt new and innovative platforms to continue with the celebration and traditions despite the health crisis. Taking good care of our mental health is one priority that we should look upon in these trying times. Activities like debate will enhance the mental alertness of our youth and improve their critical skills. Debate entails a lot of fun. It is timely that the organizers supports mental health promotion, which involves actions that support people to adopt and maintain healthy lifestyle and activities and which create supportive living conditions or environments for health. Gawa-gawayan in the new normal also requires that we remain vigilant in our daily lives until we can safely return to everyday activities. Thank you very much, and I wish you a happy and meaningful festival.
Thank you so much to our dear Mayor Bernard T. of the city of Cauayan, and of course, our partners from Isabela State University, Dr. Priscilla C. De Lima, and from the DepEd Cauayan, Dr. Alfredo B. Gumaro, and of course, from our partner JCI, the President, Councilor JCD, and of course, our Director General, Mr. Michael De Guzman Sr. Maraming salamat po. And now, ladies and gentlemen, gusto nyo na po bang makita ang ating pong mga debaters sa ating pong first round? Yeah, featuring the students from Baculod High School. Virtual round of applause to them. And of course, our students from Sillawit National High School. Pero bago ho tayo magpatuloy, ay akin muna pong ipakilala ang ating pong mga hurado ngayong umaga. So allow me to introduce to you the members of the Board of Judges. Our first judge, he took his Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, and Masters of Art in English at the Philippine Normal University, Manila. He took his Doctors of Philosophy at University of Santo Tomas. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Professor 6 and the Vice President of Academic Affairs of Isabela State University. Virtual applause to Dr. Boyet L. Batang. Our second judge, she took his Doctors of Medicine at Manila Central University Filimon de Tanchoco Medical Foundation in the year 1997. She took also his Bachelor of Laws at Isabela State University Cauayan Campus in the year 2013. And now, the Assistant City Health Officer of the City of Cauayan. Ladies and gentlemen, our judge number 2, Dr. Marie Christine Abogado Puruganan. And the chairman of the Board of Judges, a former student of Isabela State University, Sibapa Department of ISU Ichagi Campus, and the municipal councilor of the municipality of Alicia, a private law practitioner, a law professor of Northeastern College in Santiago City, an active member of the movement of Young Legislator Isabela and Philippine Councilors League. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Board of Judges, Attorney Jonathan Atan Balad Valiente. And of course, our moderator, the Assistant Professor of Isabela State University, Cauayan Campus, the College Secretary of the College of Law, and the coach of Isabela State University Debate Team. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator, Mr. Narsal M. Foronda Jr.
The official dome of the city of Cauayan, headed by our very own Mayor Bernard Faustino, MD, the City Council, and of course with the support, the ever-supportive City Councilor Gary Galutera, distinguished members of the Board of Judges, all debate enthusiasts, good morning. Welcome the first Mayor Bernard Faustino, MD, inter-school debate. To start with, may I read the guidelines for the inter-school debate finals. All participants must wear face mask and face shield at all times, except those who will be speaking at the podium will be allowed to take their face mask and face shield off. During the debate, only debating teams, 3 speakers and 1 researcher, and 1 coach per team will be allowed inside the hall. Other debaters must stay in the holding area. During the debate, each speaker will be given a maximum of 5 minutes for the constructive speech, 3 minutes for the rebuttal speech, and 3 minutes for the interpellation, and 7 minutes for the rebuttal speech. We will be using the Oxford-Oregon type of debate. Each speaker will be given also the chance to qualify answers once only during the interpellation with permission from the moderator. Avoid insulting remarks and gestures. You should also maintain proper decorum at all times, as a good debater should be. And lastly, judge's decision is final. Okay, let's start the debate competition. Let me now present to you the debaters from Sillawit National High School. May you please stand as your name is called. Maricris Causo, Homer D. Evangelista, Delmar O. Tangangeo, and the researchers Eoli B. Ignacio and Christian Joy de la Cruz. The coach is, of course, Mr. Romel Domingo. Let me also present to you the debaters from Villa Concepcion High School, Baculod Extension. Crisel May Acob, Robert Basada, Trisha Jane Blas, and the researchers Rodrigo Aguinaldo and Jester Andres. Okay, the first debate will now officially start with the proposition, let it be resolved that COVID-19 vaccine be mandatory among Filipinos. To start with, may we listen to the constructive speech of the first speaker from the affirmative side.
To our judges, spectators, and dear opponents, a pleasant morning to one and all. Based on the Philippine National COVID-19 Vaccination Deployment Plan, the World Health Organization declared coronavirus disease 2019 as a public health emergency of international concern last January 30, 2020. On the same date, the Philippines, an archipelagic country in Southeast Asia with a population of 109,581,078 based on the 2020 Philippine Statistics Authority census, had its first laboratory confirmed case of COVID-19. COVID-19 is a disease caused by a novel coronavirus first reported in Wuhan, China, last 31 December 2019, and was later named as the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2 or SARS-CoV-2. On 7 March 2020, the Department of Health announced the country's first reported local transmission when a 60-year-old male without any travel history outside the Philippines was confirmed to be positive for SARS-CoV-2. On 11 March 2020, the WHO characterized COVID-19 as a pandemic. Since then, the Philippines has been responding to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and has been implementing numerous interventions with varying levels and degrees of success. This plan for COVID-19 pandemic response interventions are anchored on the National Action Plan Against COVID-19 or NAP. The National Strategic Plan for COVID-19 Pandemic Response and utilize the Prevent, Detect, Isolate, Quarantine, Treat, Reintegrate or PDITR strategy. For NAP Phase 1, from March to June 2020, the national government focused on preventing and containing the COVID-19 pandemic while mitigating its socio-economic impact. For NAP Phase 2, from July to September 2020, the national government focused on socio-economic recovery. Lastly, for NAP Phase 3, October 2020 to March 2021, the national government focused on managing the health risk while gradually transitioning to full socio-economic recovery and inclusion of vaccines as part of the COVID-19 interventions. Vaccines have saved millions of lives in the past. countries around the world have implemented numerous immunization programs against more than 20 life-threatening diseases, such as measles, poliomyelitis, hepatitis B, influenza, and many others. These vaccination efforts prevented almost 23 million deaths every year and allowed people to live longer and healthier lives. Also, though vaccination, eradication, and near elimination of diseases have been made possible, such as in the case of smallpox and poliomyelitis. In the past, vaccines have also been utilized as an integral part epidemic response to infectious diseases. Examples are the 2009 influenza pandemic, vaccines against the novel influenza, H1N1 virus, and recombinant vesicular stomatitis virus, Ebola, vaccine against Ebola in 2014 to 2016. Such vaccines have prevented succeeding outbreaks and further disease spread and have aided in saving thousands of lives. An exemplar of the benefit of vaccines in halting disease outbreaks and breaking the chain of transmission was in August 2018 when the Democratic Republic of Congo, or RDC, declared the Kivu Ebola epidemic as 53 individuals were infected and 29 deaths were reported. 300,000 individuals were vaccinated immediately thereafter. This endeavor resulted in halting the outbreak within the region, and due continuous efforts via the ring vaccination strategy, the reported number of deaths among those who were infected and infected cases of tertiary contacts were significantly reduced. Thus, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the Philippines is exploring all means to access COVID-19 vaccines and prepare the country for the implementation of a COVID-19 deployment and vaccination program once a safe, effective, and good quality vaccine is readily available. Now, is there a possibility that the Philippines may implement a mandatory vaccination against COVID-19, considering that there are readily available vaccines? To answer this question, allow me to expound mandatory vaccination as well as the justification for mandatory vaccination from an ethical perspective. What is mandatory vaccination? It means that some form of coercion is used to get people to vaccinate themselves or their children. Vaccine mandates are fundamentally about restricting individuals or parental liberty for the public good or for child's own good.
Time's up.
Thank you.
First speaker from the negative, start your interpellation.
Okay, good morning, Mrs. Speaker. You are
Good
only
morning.
allowed to answer my questions with yes or no.
Okay.
Is it constitutional to impose mandatory vaccination for everyone?
Yes.
For these present circumstances, the answer has to be no. So you've mentioned in your speech that vaccines save millions
Yes.
of lives in the past. But then are you aware that those vaccines used from the past took years to be made and multiple iterations to be made, while this vaccine took only a short period of time? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So, is the COVID-19 pandemic such a great danger that it would be reasonable to secure the safety of the general public for the government to force everyone in the country to be vaccinated?
Mr. Moderator, may I explain?
Go ahead.
Please repeat your question.
Is the COVID-19 pandemic such a great danger that it would be reasonable to secure the safety of general public for the government to force everyone in the country to be vaccinated?
But voluntary vaccination wouldn't be as effective as mandatory vaccination because 61% said no to getting inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine.
But then the government can compel you to take the COVID vaccine if you don't want to.
But if we are in danger,
Okay.
would you rather to bring the risk to everyone? If you get vaccinated, you and the other will be safe.
So are you aware that there's still no assurance that the virus will not be transmitted to you even if you got vaccinated?
Yes.
Okay, so are you aware that the vaccine or the mandatory vaccination violates human rights?
Yes, but Mr. Moderator.
Okay, no. Are you aware that it will violate humans' right to health? Yes or no?
No.
Are you aware that it will violate humans' right to privacy?
Yes.
Yes? So are you aware that it will violate humans' right, the right as a patient for informed choice and consent? Yes or no?
Yes.
So are you aware that it will violate patients' right to appropriate care and human treatment?
Pardon?
Are you aware that it will violate patients' right to appropriate care and humane treatment? Yes or no?
No.
Are you aware that Filipinos have the constitutional right to refuse the vaccine? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you said yes. So would you agree with me now if I say that it is really necessary for the COVID-19 vaccine to be made mandatory?
Yes.
So, Mr. Moderator, that's the end of my interpellation.
Okay, first speaker from the negative, proceed with your constructive speech.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Crizel Meacob from the negative side. We in the opposite side strongly disagree that the COVID-19 vaccination will be made mandatory to the Filipinos. Here are my striking points to support my proposition. My first point, mandatory vaccination is unconstitutional. It would simply be unreasonable to impose a mandatory vaccination on an otherwise healthy and significant population when the minority that is truly affected by the coronavirus has been identified. And even for that minority, the government can certainly apply less intrusive means to serve public health purposes that will not violate anyone's civil liberties. Notably, the misnamed Mandatory Infants and Children Health Immunization Act of 2011, Republic Act 10152, contains no penalty for non-vaccination. Moreover, it is based on the constitutional right to health, or Section 15, Article 2 of the Constitution, which says, states shall protect and promote the right to health of the people and instill health consciousness among them. Retired Supreme Court Justice Angelina Sandoval Gutierrez said that, aside from the right to health, the constitutional right to privacy can also be basis for opposing mandatory vaccination. The objection is that it will violate a person's basic right to privacy. Moreover, Section 11 of Article 2 of the Constitution provides that the state values the dignity of every human person. And Senior Associate Justice Estela Perlas Bernabe said, Filipinos have the constitutional right to refuse the vaccine because the right to health is a constitutional right and Filipinos have the right to refuse or not to refuse the vaccine. Even assuming that the COVID vaccine is proven safe, its effectiveness must also be addressed. Despite the years, flu vaccines have been shown to be merely 50 to 60% effective, that for tuberculosis perhaps 80%. So setting aside for now arguments based on religious exemptions, ultimately the issue is about the exercise of police power which requires compliance with the Constitution and legislation. It's also necessary there be lawful subject and lawful means. Mandatory vaccination for COVID-19 fails on those counts. Second point, there's still no assurance that the virus will not be transmitted to you even if you got vaccinated. According to the World Health Organization, there's still a possibility that the virus will be transmitted to you because none of the COVID vaccines such as Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Sputnik V provide 100% protection. So there's still a chance you could get COVID even after you get both doses. The smallpox vaccine was introduced in 1796, 109 years before the case was resolved. According to Justice Harlan's majority opinion, vaccine mandates are not oppressive so long as they do not go so far beyond what was reasonably required for the safety of the public. It is entirely unreasonable to argue that the COVID-19 vaccine will have the same level of efficiency and safety that the battle-tested smallpox vaccine did, given that most of the vaccines take many years and multiple iterations to be made or to become effective. Last, an online survey spearheaded by University of Santo Tomas researchers shows around 9 out of 10 Filipinos have concern about the COVID vaccine. A high percentage of respondents from the UST COVAX research are worried on COVID-19 vaccine's effects, 92.7%, efficacy, 90.3%, safety, 91.7%. The study conducted from January 16 to 30 this year revealed almost all of the over 15,600 respondents are also worried on vaccines being made too quickly, 80.2%, vaccines not tested properly, 80.5%, and ineffective vaccines against variants, 84.5%. Having this stated, the government doesn't have the right or power to force everyone to receive the vaccination even if there is a health emergency. They cannot impose a national legal standard on locality unless mandated by the Constitution, which in this case, it was not. According to Secretary Carlito G. Galvez Jr., Chief Implementer and Vaccine Caesar National Task Force Against COVID-19, the vaccine is among the solutions, but it is not only the solution to end the pandemic. Thus, it is critical for everyone's health, safety, and well-being to still adhere to minimum public health standards, make smart choices based on correct information, practice safe behavior, and for the health sector to conduct effective surveillance, contact tracing, and have adequate capacity to manage the sick. Being forced to take any vaccines, no matter, okay.
Time's up, Mr. Speaker. First speaker from the affirmative. Start your interpellation.
Good morning, Mrs. Speaker. So my questions are only answerable by yes or no. First question is, are you aware that COVID-19 is now rapidly spreading around the world and we Filipinos are strongly affected?
Yes, I am aware.
Yes, you are. Are you aware that vaccine mimic the virus or bacteria that cause disease and triggers the body's creation of antibodies?
Yes.
Yes, you are aware. Are you aware that these antibodies will provide protection once a person is infected with the actual disease-causing virus or bacteria?
Mr. Moderator, can I, my answer, sir?
Okay, qualify your answer.
Even if the COVID-19 is proven safe, its effectiveness must also be addressed. And are you saying that you stated that the COVID-19 will provide for the
antibodies?
Yes, antibodies. But it is the World Health Organization is stated that the virus, the Pfizer, Moderna, Sputnik vaccines doesn't have 100% protection. So it is not.
Proceed with your next question.
But would you agree with me if I say that COVID-19 vaccination is an additional tool to contribute to the control of pandemic? In short, it can help to prevent disease like COVID-19.
Yes, I agree, but it is not only the
yes
solution.
Or no? I just need your yes or no answer.
No.
Would you agree with me if I say that implementing mandatory vaccination will greatly help us in controlling this pandemic?
No. Because it is not only the
yes
solution.
Yes or no,
no
answer. Are you aware that vaccination can be mandatory?
No, it is not. It is
yes or no. I just need your yes or no answer.
No.
Are you aware that vaccination can be ethically justified if the threat to public health is grave?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Are you aware that vaccination can be ethically justified if the penalties or cost for non-compliance are proportionate? Yes or no?
No.
Are you aware that vaccination can be ethically justified if the expected utility of mandatory vaccination is greater than the alternatives?
No.
So you should be aware of that. Are you aware that the government highly encourages the public to get vaccinated and be protected against preventable disease? Yes or no?
Yes, I am aware.
Yes, you are. Would you agree with me if I say that the government can implement a mandatory vaccination if these requirements are met?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Are you aware that vaccination is an important way to protect yourself from getting severe COVID-19?
Yes, it is important,
yes
but
or
it
no,
also has a 100%
Mrs. Speaker,
assurance.
yes or no?
Yes.
Are you aware that by getting the COVID-19 vaccine, you also lessen the chance of spreading the COVID-19 pathogen to family members, friends, or other people with whom you have contact?
Yes, I am
or
aware,
no?
but
yes or no answer
but there
only.
should be
Mrs.
100%
Speaker, yes or no
assurance. Yes.
answer only. Would you agree with me? Are you aware that more people who get vaccinated, the faster we can end the COVID-19 pandemic? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, you said yes. Would you agree with me if I say that mandatory lockdown is not enough to reduce our chance of being exposed to the virus and mandatory vaccination is necessary?
Time's
yes
up,
or no?
time's up. Let me remind you that you are allowed only to qualify your answers once during the interpellation. Now let's proceed to the second speaker from the affirmative.
March 17, 2020, Luzon underwent enhanced community quarantine, ECQ, and even up to these days, there are still parts of the country imposing it. Good morning to our dear opponents, adjudicators, and spectators. especially to our Board of Judges. It's been how many months that we are waiting for COVID-19 vaccines to eventually impede and refrain the spread of COVID-19. And now we receive vaccines like Sinovac and AstraZeneca and still waiting for more vaccines. The long days and nights of waiting are finally over. However, myriad of questions emerges about the efficacy of vaccines, leading to people's hesitancy to get vaccinated. That's why I will be providing factual informations about the efficacy of each vaccines. But before that, allow me to elucidate some of the advantages of the pre-existing mandatory vaccinations around the world. According to Downey Patriot Newspaper 2019, vaccines save children's lives. According to Shot at Life, a United Nations Foundation partner organization, vaccines save 2.5 million children from preventable diseases every year, which equates to roughly 285 children saved every hour. Second, major medical organizations state that vaccines are safe. The WHO states vaccines are very safe. The US Department of Health and Human Services states vaccines are some of the safest medical products available. Third, vaccines protect the herd. Herd immunity or community immunity means that when a critical portion of a population is vaccinated against a contagious disease, it is unlikely that an outbreak of the disease will occur, so most members of the community will be protected. Fourth, vaccines protect future generations. Vaccinated mothers protect their unborn children from viruses that could potentially cause birth defects. And vaccinated communities can help eradicate diseases for future generations. Fifth, vaccines eradicated smallpox and have nearly eradicated other diseases, such as polio. And lastly, vaccines provide economic benefits for society. As to COVID-19 vaccines, these vaccines that are granted with emergency use authorization, EUA, by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, are considered safe and effective based on the available evidence to date. The efficacy of a vaccine is based on two factors: its capacity to prevent infection and its capacity to prevent severe symptoms or disease to avoid death. According to COVID-19 vaccine in PH What to Know 2021. Based on the information available on the official site of DOH, the following are the efficacy of four vaccines approved by the Philippine FDA. Pfizer-BioNTech. It was approved last January 14, 2021. It has a vaccine efficacy of 95% against asymptomatic COVID-19, 7 days after the second dose. Oxford AstraZeneca. It was approved last January 28, 2021. It has a vaccine efficacy of 70.4% against symptomatic COVID-19, 14 days after the second dose. Coronavac or Sinovac. It was approved last February 22, 2021. It has a vaccine efficacy of 65 to 91% based on Brazil, Indonesia, and Turkey trials. Gamaleya Sputnik V. It was approved last March 19, 2021. It has a vaccine efficacy of 91.6% against symptomatic COVID-19, 21 days after the first dose, and 100% against moderate or severe cases, 21 days after the second dose. As cited by Montemayor 2021, Department of Science and Technology Council for Health, Research and Development, Executive Director Jaime Montoya said each vaccine is developed differently from one another in terms of platform use such as age group and comorbidities of patients. As a result, each vaccine is expected to elicit different degrees of efficacy and safety. For example, one brand may work better for senior citizens while another will be best for children. The WHO says a vaccine with more than 50% is good. Again, a vaccine may have an overall efficacy of 50%, but may have a higher efficacy in other groups. That is why some vaccines may be better for some groups, example, older people, and some are better for the younger population. I had mentioned the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines and provided information about it. Undeniably, lack of information about the vaccines is one of the primary reasons why people are hesitant to get vaccinated. This information could help to clear their minds and finally approve COVID-19 vaccines be mandatory for
Time's up.
Filipinos. Thank you.
Second speaker from the negative, please start your interpellation.
My question is answerable by yes or no only. Are you sure that mandatory vaccination can guarantee or secure people's life?
Yes.
Then, do you know that the vaccines that we have on the table are vaccines which are under clinical trials and can be revoked?
It passed
Yes or
clinical
no
trials.
answer,
No.
Mr. Speaker? Are you aware that the vaccines are under EUA?
It is approved by EUA
Yes or
and
no?
FDA.
Are you aware?
Yes.
Are you aware that EUA have less evidence of safety and efficacy?
But
A
FDA...
yes or no answer only?
No.
So you're not aware. Are you aware that the new vaccines are not trialed to the same rigorous standard as any normally prescribed drug?
No.
So now, can we legally mandate vaccination given that the only vaccines currently available have been granted emergency use authorization but not full approved by FDA?
We can make it...
Yes or no answer?
No.
So no. Are vaccinations sufficiently available to make mandatory vaccinations possible?
Pardon?
Are vaccinations sufficiently available to make mandatory vaccination possible?
But the Department of
A
Finance...
yes or no?
No.
So we cannot make mandatory vaccination because we are sufficient.
We can make it because
we
the
can-
Department
we can-
of
because
Finance,
we are-
DOF, has assured the public health.
A yes or no,
that
sir,
the
stop.
public that
Okay,
funds
let's
have
move on.
sufficient-
Does the mandatory vaccination completely prevent an individual from getting and transmitting COVID-19?
According to
A
WHO.
yes or no answer?
No.
Are you aware that even if vaccinated, there's still a chance to transmit and get COVID-19?
But it is extremely...
A yes or no, are you aware?
Yes, I'm aware.
So you're aware. Do you agree to me that mandatory vaccination cannot end the pandemic?
It could
A
be.
yes or no?
It could be because we can...
A yes or no?
No. Qualified
So
no.
it's not. Are you aware that mandatory vaccination failed in the past years?
But one
Are
historical...
you aware that vaccinations...
No, because one historical...
You should be aware of
point
that, Mr.
is
Speaker. You
when
mentioned
vaccine was-
Proceed
you
with your
mentioned
next question. Proceed with your next question.
You mentioned AstraZeneca vaccination. So are you aware that AstraZeneca is suspended by FDA because it is too risky?
But there is no...
Are you
such
aware that
substantial information or
AstraZeneca, a yes or no
scientific
answer, Mr.
evidence
Speaker?
to prove that it is...
A yes or no, Mr. Speaker?
No.
So you should be aware of that. And that ends my interpellation.
Okay, second speaker from the negative. Please proceed with your constructive speech.
Good morning, Board of Judges, Moderator, Opposition, and audience. We, from the negative side, resolve that the COVID-19 vaccine should not be mandatory for Filipinos because it doesn't guarantee benefits. Everyone yearns for a return to normality, but vaccine won't be the magic solution that curbs the pandemic in our country. I am Robert Basada, and here are my points. Under the plan of the Philippines in addressing COVID-19, it was mentioned that the human well-being or human rights, civil liberties, and individuals are promoted and protected, and their interests are considered with equal moral consideration. Moreover, we always aim for informed choice as stated in patient's right, particularly the right of the patient for right to appropriate care and humane treatment and right to informed consent. We believe that mandating Filipinos for vaccination will be a big violation and a risk to take. Typically, vaccines are created for years, involving different people of different ages in order for it to be known effective. COVID-19 vaccines are only created in a short period of time. Although assured by FDA, we do not know the effects of it in the long run. Therefore, it should not be made mandatory to secure the health of everyone. Telescoping testing timelines and approvals may expose all of us to unnecessary dangers related to the vaccine. While preclinical trials to evaluate the potential safety and efficacy of the vaccine candidates are likely to include tens of thousands of patients, it is still unclear whether the number will be large enough and a trial will last long enough to evaluate safety for a vaccine that would be administered to so many, including the population with different ages. Let's consider the ill-fated event of 1976, which was also known as the swine flu affair of America, where a vaccine becomes mandatory knowing that it could prevent people from getting an alleged virus in America. The Centers for Disease Control got to work immediately, manufacturing enough vaccine to begin inoculation. The government's plan to vaccinate every man, woman, and child in the United States. Within 10 months, 25% of the U.S. population, or 45 million citizens, were vaccinated before it was put to stop because of serious problems persisted throughout the process. The rationale for mass vaccination seemed to stem from only the barriers of biological reasoning. It turned out that those who were infected with the flu only suffered from a mild illness, while the vaccine, for the reasons stated above, resulted in over 450 people developing the paralyzing Guillain-Barré syndrome. Taking this an example, we cannot risk the people for mandatory vaccine, which undergone trials of short period of time. We could not risk people who are healthy and safe and inject them a vaccine which would later might harm them. On the other hand, the current vaccines that were authorized by Food, Drug, and Administration, such as Pfizer-BioNTech, AstraZeneca vaccine, CoronaVac, and Sputnik V for COVID-19 are under emergency use authorization. The EUA means it is reasonable to believe that the drug may be effective. This may be effective standard is a much lower level of evidence compared to the effectiveness standard the FDA uses for product approvals. Technically, a vaccine needs to have FDA approvals before the public can receive it. In the Philippines, any new drug and vaccine should have an approval from the FDA based on application containing full reports of investigation to show whether or not such vaccine is safe, efficacious, and of good quality for use based on clinical studies prior to manufacture, sale, importation, exportation, distribution, or transfer. While the need for a safe and efficacious COVID-19 vaccine is there and immediate, an EUA may not be the best regulatory method to provide access. Expert warns the EUA pathway may impede vital scientific progress needed to establish the long-term safety and efficacy of investigational COVID-19 vaccine. Although an EUA is like in the cards for at least one of the investigational vaccine, an issue one eventually proved to be disastrous for our understanding of overall safety and efficacy. Having been said, we should show transparency of vaccines to people and decide for themselves rather than force them to be injected as a way of recognizing the right of human treatment. Mandatory vaccination is rarely justified. The successful rollout of novel COVID-19 vaccine will require time, communication, and trust. Opposing mandatory vaccination is not the same as opposing vaccination altogether. Mandatory COVID-19 vaccine should not, at this point, be on the table. With that, I rest my case.
Proceed with your interpellation. Second speaker from the affirmative.
Good morning. Do you know what is vaccine efficacy?
Yes, I am. I know.
Do you know that World Health Organization defines efficacy as a reduction in disease incidence in a vaccinated group compared to unvaccinated group under optimal conditions, such as in randomized clinical trial?
Yes.
Do you know that efficacy is measured not only by a vaccine's ability to prevent infection, but also in its prevention of severe forms of the disease and forward transmission?
Mr. Moderator, can I explain that?
Yes, you may qualify your answer.
Sir, it's not stated in my speech. His question is not stated in my speech.
Proceed with the next question. Second speaker.
Would you agree with me if I say that these vaccines have the benefits to protect you against severe COVID-19 and it is greater than the risk?
Yes.
Are you aware that through Executive Order Number 121 Series of 2020, vaccines under development can be granted an EUA where there is no adequate, approved, and available alternative to a vaccine for preventing COVID-19 during this present public health emergency? Yes or no?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
Can I qualify his question? The EUA means it's reasonable to believe that the drug may be effective. The may be effective standard is much lower evidence of safety and efficacy.
but public health is in danger. Okay. Are you aware that EUA granted to the vaccine is not a marketing or authorization or a certificate of product registration as stated under Executive Number 121?
Yes.
Are you aware that FDA or Food Drug Administration was created to establish and maintain a drug regulatory system to ensure the purity, safety, efficacy, and quality drugs and vaccines in the country?
Yes.
Are you aware that the FDA commits to continue its job to ensure that Filipinos can have access to vaccines that hold greater benefits and outweighs the risk and possible adverse effects during this time
Yes.
of pandemic? Then are you aware that FDA takes action to help facilitate timely development of safe, effective COVID-19 vaccines?
Yes.
Are you aware that there are 4 vaccines that were approved by FDA?
Yes.
Are you aware that these vaccines have gone through testing and approval process?
Yes.
Yes. Would you agree with me if I say that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective?
No.
Safe and effective.
No. It's
Are
not
you
100%
aware that, okay, let's
safe
move
and
on.
effective.
Are you aware that vaccines have saved millions of lives?
Yes.
Are you aware that
Time's up,
vaccinated...
time's up.
Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed with the third speaker from the affirmative.
The COVID-19 pandemic is the worst health crisis in this generation. It is severely challenging our country with the rising numbers of COVID-19 cases. Despite the stringent safety protocols and safety measures, our country still stands as one of the unsafe countries in Southeast Asia. Adjudicators, viewers, listeners, and worthy opponents, a pleasant morning to one and all. According to the data of World Health Organization, as of April 8, 2021, there have been 819,164 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the Philippines, with 14,059 deaths. Aside from the rising numbers of COVID-19 cases, the emergence of different COVID-19 variants is also challenging. Recently, the DOH reported a new variant which was named as SARS-CoV-19, first discovered in Central Visayas. The variant bears a resemblance to the recently discovered Japanese variant and the infamous Brazilian variant P1, known for its dangerous escape capability. Thus, this new variant has a greater risk of transmission. This is why we strongly believe that mandatory vaccination is needed. According to MIL 2011, mandatory vaccination can be justified in some grounds. The sole ground of the use of state coercion is when an individual risks of harming others. In the case of COVID-19, an infected individual can transmit the disease to other people. That is why vaccination is really important for the sake of public health. On March 1, the first batch of COVID-19 vaccines arrived in the Philippines. For many, this represents hope. However, as vaccine confidence plummets in the country, the end of the pandemic remains elusive. The success of vaccination campaign as a public health intervention hinges upon individual action to achieve collective or herd immunity. This might as well be called social solidarity, something that Philippines once held as a matter of pride. The consequence of the Dengue controversy on vaccine confidence is likely affecting the country's COVID-19 vaccination prospects. In a nationally represented survey by the social weather stations, in September 2020, 1/3 of those surveyed demonstrated COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy, and only 66% of Filipinos were willing to get a COVID-19 vaccine. This mandatory vaccination does not necessarily mean physically forcing people to get a job. When a vaccine is introduced, it is necessary to guarantee that the population will receive the necessary information about its characteristics and benefits to boost confidence and generate demand. Demand generation is a communication and engagement process to enable, inform, motivate, and empower groups of people to get or to claim their right to health service. Mandatory vaccination deals with social welfare maximization. It is not about government overruling the individual preference for the risk of isolated impacts. We should also consider the efforts of the government to end this pandemic. According to the Bureau of Treasury, the country's outstanding debt rose by 26.7% to 9.77 trillion pesos in 2020, as the government needs more funds to respond to the crisis. This has increased to 10.33 trillion pesos at the end of January 2020, excluding all the country's millions of worth of loans from multilateral lenders for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccine. Some European countries are considering making vaccinations mandatory, including implementing financial penalties for non-compliance, even if they do not have a history of such policies, for instance, Italy and France. In case of Philippines, mandatory vaccination is nothing new. There are already pre-existing laws imposing the mandatory vaccination. One is the RA 10152, which mandates basic immunization for children, and the Republic Act 7896, requiring a compulsory immunization against hepatitis B for infants and children below 8 years old. These laws were successfully imposed. And the mandatory vaccination for COVID-19 is also possible through lawful process. It's just a matter of passing a law. Another way is the exercise of police power. This is the right to protect the country and its population from threats to public health and safety. There is no place for selfish behaviors in this pandemic. Every one of us has a responsibility to contain this outbreak, and failures to contain this virus means a greater risk to triggering the next pandemic wave in the country.
Time's
With that,
up,
I
Mr.
rest my
Speaker.
case.
Third speaker from the negative, start your interpellation.
Okay. Okay. Do you know the Philippine National Deployment and Vaccination Plan for COVID-19 vaccines?
Yes, I just mentioned it earlier.
Then you are aware that the goal of this plan is to encourage the public for vaccination and not to make it mandatory.
Yes,
Okay? Do you know that the available vaccines are developed at an unprecedented speed?
qualified no.
Okay. Are you aware that the available COVID-19 vaccines needed 2 doses?
Some of the vaccines, yes.
I need yes or no
Yes.
answer. Okay? Are you aware that we are lacking of budget for COVID-19 vaccination?
Qualified no.
Okay? You should be aware of that. Are you aware of the effects if a person got only 1 dose of the vaccine?
Yes.
Okay.
But may I expound my answer, Mr.
Go ahead, go ahead.
As stated by some studies, the first dose, when you got the first dose, you might still contract the virus. That is why we need the second dose. For the second dose, immunity from the virus will be assured. That is why mandatory vaccination is important.
Okay. Are you aware that the experts are warning the government against rushing out a coronavirus vaccine safety and effective?
Qualified no.
You've mentioned on your speech that the virus will not be transmitted to you even if you got vaccinated. Are you aware that WHO said that there are still a
The
possibility...
question, what's the question?
Are you aware that WHO or the World Health Organization said that there's still a possibility that the virus will be transmitted to you
That's for the
even
first
if you
dose.
are given doses?
That's for the first dose.
Okay. Is mandatory vaccination the only problem to end the pandemic?
Pardon?
Is the mandatory vaccination the only solution to end the pandemic?
Yes.
If yes, are you aware that there are countries which already stopped their cases and made their cases zero even before the creation of the available
Because
vaccines?
they got...
I need a yes or no answer.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you agree with me that mandating vaccination is not really practicable?
Qualified no.
Mr. Moderator, that ends my interpellation.
Okay. Third speaker from the negative, proceed with your constructive speech.
One of the most important development in our fight against the pandemic is the development of COVID-19 vaccines at an unprecedented speed. While there is no cure and none of the vaccines that are being developed have been proven to prevent transmission, the vaccine still serve very important purposes. These are preventing severe diseases, thereby reducing deaths caused by severe effects of the virus and preventing symptoms from occurring, thereby transmission. The Philippine situation must be understood in the light of the challenges in the national deployment and vaccine program. First, there is a global limited supply of vaccines where every country in the world seeking gain to access vaccines and where 80% of available supply has been already taken by richest countries. The Philippines is historically a third world country and currently a developing country, which means we will not have enough doses to cater the millions of Filipinos given the fact that we are one of the countries that are negotiating on the 20% left on the table. Good day, I am Trisha Jane Reyna Blas and I will talk why mandatory COVID-19 vaccination is not practicable. There are 110 million Filipinos. Of 110 million, around 40 million are age 18 and below, and it is not recommended that teenagers below get the vaccine. If everyone would be vaccinated, it requires a huge amount of money for the Philippines to accommodate them all, considering that the Philippines is a third world country. Since the Philippines can only procure vaccines in the remaining 20% of the developed vaccines, COVID vaccine must not be mandatory. Moreover, under the Philippine National Deployment and Vaccination Plan for COVID vaccines, they already prioritize the groups who will be vaccinated first, namely frontline health workers and uniformed personnel, since they have higher risk of exposure while on their duty, and to allow them to continue fulfilling their duties in both public and private sectors. Vulnerable groups such as the elderly and the indigent population are prioritized, guided by the principle of equity. As of January 2021, 76% of 82.5 billion pesos budget targeted for COVID-19 vaccination will be coming from new foreign loans. This translates to 62.5 billion pesos that the government is currently negotiating with multilateral banks. Aside from these new loans, another 2.54 billion pesos of the loans that government had previously secured for COVID-19 response will be realigned toward procuring vaccines. The Philippine government has amassed a total of approximately 640.96 billion pesos in loan for its COVID-19 response that will be paid on 2020 or 2049. Data of Department of Finance shows as of December 15, 2020, the amount of loans nearly doubled since July 1, 2020, where total of government loan for COVID-19 response stood at 7.73 billion US dollars. Mandatory vaccination does not automatically increase vaccine uptake. An EU-funded project on epidemic and pandemic found no evidence to support this notion. Looking at Baltic and Scandinavian countries, the project report that countries where a vaccination is mandatory do not usually reach a better coverage, or similar countries where there is no legal obligation. In early 1990s, polio was pandemic between 500 and 1,000 children getting paralyzed daily in India. By 2011, the virus was eliminated. This was not approved or achieved through legislation. It was down to a consolidated effort to involve communities, target high-need groups, understand concerns, inform, educate, remove barriers, invest in local delivery systems, and link with political religious leaders. COVID-19 severity is strongly linked with age, dividing individual perceptions of vulnerability within populations. The death rate is estimated at 7.8% in people aged over 80, but at just 0.0016% in children aged 9 and under. In a liberal democracy, forcing the vaccination of millions of young and healthy citizens who perceive themselves to be at an acceptably low risk from COVID-19 will be ethically disputed and politically risky. Moreover, going mandates without transparent efforts to educate the public is a shortcut to suppressing vaccine safety concerns and will breed even stronger resistance. Rather than immediately reaching for mandates, the first response to concerns should be increased transparency as much as possible. With the facts I had stated, mandatory COVID-19 vaccination is not practicable. I am now ready for interpellation.
Time's up. Third speaker from the affirmative, start your interpellation.
Mr. Speaker, are you aware of the so-called police power?
Yes.
Can you explain what police power is?
It means the police will be in the authority to make.
Not necessarily the police. Let's
Okay.
proceed to the second question. Are you aware of that there are or there has to be a law and the basis could be police power?
No.
Congress may enact the mandatory law not only on the basis of Section 15, Article 2 of the Constitution, but also on the basis of the police power of the state. Isn't that correct?
No.
Would you agree with me if I say that the state can invoke its police power to justify this measure, especially in the light of pandemic's effect on our healthcare system and the number of cases?
No.
Would you agree with me if I say that implementing a mandatory vaccination against COVID-19 is legal?
No. Excuse me, Mr. Moderator, can I qualify my answer?
Yes, proceed.
Okay? Forcing someone to take the vaccine is unconstitutional because it is against the human right, the
But your-
patient's right.
And the first speaker earlier said, based in Article 2, Section 15 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, that the state shall protect the right to health of the people.
But
let's
it
proceed
is
to the
also
next
stated in
question.
Article
Are you
1, Section
aware
2?
of the Are you aware that the Philippine Congress has previously enacted a law that made some immunization mandatory before?
Yes.
Can you recite some Republic Acts or laws regarding this mandatory immunization?
I forgot.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are you aware with the Republic Act 10152 or the mandatory infant and children health immunization?
Can you enlighten me with that?
Okay. The Republic Act 10152, as I said earlier, the state shall protect the health or the right to health of the
Okay,
people.
proceed with your question.
Okay. Are you aware that we can call vaccines as herd, and these vaccines can guard us from harm that brought by
No.
viruses? Why?
Because we are not aware of its long-term effects.
But the FDA and
No.
EUA approved it.
The FDA
Okay,
didn't
next,
approve.
question. Would you agree with me if I say that we need stronger herd to face this disease, and vaccines are one of the only way?
No.
Would you agree with me? Please give me another example for this the solution for this COVID-19.
Excuse me, can you please make your questions clear?
You said no. So give
Yes.
me an example or other way to contain this virus.
Okay, first,
Time's up. Okay. Those are the constructive speeches of both debating teams. Now let's proceed to the rebuttal speech, which will be given first by the rebuttal speaker from the negative side.
the immunization and prioritization of COVID-19 shall be anchored to the following principles that is under the Philippine National Deployment and Vaccination Plan for COVID-19 vaccines. First, human well-being, where health, social, and economic security, human rights and civil liberties of all citizens and individuals. Second, equal respect, where all human beings are treated equally and their interests are considered with equal moral consideration. Third, national equity, where equity in vaccine access is assured nationally and those with greater burden of COVID-19 pandemic. Fourth, reciprocity, where individuals and groups who bore a greater burden in COVID-19 pandemic response have a higher significant risk brought by roles shall be given priority. And fifth, legitimacy, where decisions are made through transparent processes based on shared values and scientific evidence. Having this stated, the government does not have the right or power to force everyone and instate mandatory vaccination. The right to health is a constitutional right, and every Filipino has the right to refuse to be vaccinated. While the need for safe and efficacious COVID-19 vaccine is dire and immediate, an EUA may not be the best regulatory to provide access, although EUA is likely in the cards for at least one of the investigational vaccines an assurance eventually proved to be disastrous for our understanding of overall safety and efficacy. To sum up, mandatory COVID-19 vaccination is not necessary, beneficial, and practicable. Thank you.
Affirmative. Please deliver your rebuttal speech.
Once again, a pleasant morning to one and all. Our dear opponents identified reasons why they invalidated our contentions. But if we analyze some political and socio-economic realities, we could be catalyst of change. We would put pressure on legislation and push through with the idea of mandatory vaccination. To begin with, allow me to elucidate the guiding principles of the Philippine National Deployment and Vaccination Plan for COVID-19 vaccines, which are essential in assuring that COVID-19 vaccines are of great help to us Filipinos. First, the Philippine government recognizes the huge national endeavor that the country needs to undertake to ensure equal access to vaccines and to implement quality vaccine services. The complexity of the vaccine deployment and vaccination activities and the necessity to protect national interests while ensuring that rigorous scientific review has been undertaken prior to the deployment and considering population safety. Second, the COVID-19 vaccines deployment and vaccination program is an endeavor necessitating the participation of all members of the society, where each member has a vital responsibility and a role to play. The Filipino citizen, the communities, the national government, and the private sectors have intertwined responsibilities in which we rightfully upholded can possibly dictate the success of the COVID-19 vaccination efforts of the country. And lastly, with the COVID-19 pandemic, vaccination against COVID-19 is provided to Filipino citizens as an intervention and as an integral part of the national government's pandemic response. However, the COVID-19 vaccination services shall be fully integrated into the country's health systems and eventually to regular immunization services. In light of today's topic, allow me to expound some of the grounds in implementing a mandatory vaccination. First, if there is a serious threat to public health, according to MIL 2011, the restriction of liberty should only be considered when the problem is significant and there is a large expected harm of not intervening, which is the case of COVID-19. This happens, for instance, for COVID-19. Circulating at high levels in the community. With the number of confirmed cases and death toll, it is reasonable to conclude that COVID-19 is a serious threat to the public health. Second, if the vaccine is safe and effective. According to World Health Organization, vaccines are a critical new tool in the battle against COVID-19, and it is hugely encouraging to see so many vaccines proving successful and going into development. Working as quickly as they can, scientists from across the world are collaborating and innovating to bring us tests, treatments, and vaccines that will collectively save lives and end this pandemic. Safe and effective vaccines will be a game changer. And lastly, if a coercion is proportionate, mandatory vaccination policies are already in place in different parts of the world. There are a range of possible penalties or costs which can coerce people. Australia has no job, no pay scheme, which withholds child benefits if the child is not vaccinated. And no job, no pay scheme, which withholds kindergarten childcare benefits. Italy introduced fines for unvaccinated children who attended school. In the USA, state regulations mandate that children cannot attend school if they are not vaccinated. Furthermore, through the implementation of mandatory vaccination, we can achieve the following long-term benefits. First, it helps the society to prevent incidents of disease in the first place. They reduce chronic burden on healthcare system by ensuring that the symptoms never appear and do not need treating, thus providing benefits to our economy. Second, mandatory vaccinations ensures that the risk and burdens of reaching herd immunity are distributed evenly across the population, because herd immunity benefits society collectively. It's only fair that the responsibility of reaching it is shared evenly among society's individual members. In addition, a large population is immune to a disease, which makes spread between people unlikely. This protects the whole population, not just those who are immune. And lastly, vaccine saves lives. It has been proven time and time again for diseases ranging from polio to measles to flu. The more people a community has who are vaccinated, the healthier it is. We all have a public health commitment to our communities to protect each other. Thus, the implementation of COVID-19 vaccine program necessitates the participation of all members of the society, where all members of the society and government are encouraged to participate and take action to achieve collective goals and objectives. So, whatever is the plan of the government in combating this deadly virus, as citizens, we must cooperate. We on the affirmative side strongly believe that implementing a mandatory vaccination for Filipinos is legal, justified, and effective. With that, thank you.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Our team from Sillawit National High School and Villa Concepcion, Baculod Extension for the 3rd and 4th place. Result will be disclosed during the awarding ceremonies.
For our preparation, although may mga initial practices na kami noon, for now, with the GCQ or the lockdown going on, medyo mahirap talaga. It's quite difficult. So, ang ginagawa namin is home practices. So, it's our own initiative to do our tasks at home. Tapos, sa delegation ng work, ginagawa namin yun online. So, we're doing online meetings, virtual meetings for the practices.
Marquis Causo, 17, grade 12.
Homer Evangelista, 18, grade 12.
Dalmar Tangangeo, 18, grade 12.
Christine Joy de la Cruz, 18, grade 12.
Ayoli Ignacio, 18, grade 12.
The preparation is well conducted naman po. So since hindi po kami makapag-meet ng face-to-face para makapag-practice, our coaches decided po na mag-conduct na lang po sila ng online meeting para doon po kami makapag-usap at makapag-prepare po.
Even though mahirap po yung pinag-uusapan namin sa online meeting, tsaka po yung mahihina po yung signal namin at tsaka hindi rin po kami nakakapag-usap ng maayos, kinakaya pa rin po namin.
I am Crizel Meacob, 14 years old, a grade 9 student.
Robert Basada Jr., 16 years old, a grade 10 student.
Trisha Jane Reyna Blas, 15, a grade 10 student.
Rodrigo Aguinaldo, 16 years old, a grade 10 student.
Chester P. Andres, 16 years old, a grade 10 student.
Drastic times call for drastic measures. The OLPCC team has come together for this final battle. We actually talked to each other, we communicated online, and we used every bit of modem that we could access just so that we could prove to each and every one of you that our team is the team that is worth fighting for.
Durian, 19 years of age and a grade 12 student of the Our Lady of the Pillar College, Cauayan.
My name is Carian Aquila Garcia, 17 years of age, 11 ABM from Our Lady of the Pillar College, Cauayan.
I'm Gian Mauricio, 19 years of age, a grade 12 student of Our Lady of the Pillar College, Cauayan.
I am Kevin Robert D. Pilar Jr., 18 years old, a grade 12 student of Our Lady of the Pillar College.
I'm Kathleen Grace G. Jacob, 16, grade 11 from Our Lady of the Pillar College, Cauayan.
Desiree A. Quaresma, 18, grade 12.
Good day, my name is Marcangelo V. Agustin. I am 18 years old. I am currently studying at Cauayan City National High School main campus as a grade 12 student.
Good day, my name is Aaron Vixel G. Calimag, 18 years old, currently studying at Cauayan City National High School main campus as a grade 12 student.
Good day, everyone. I am Cody Nicole Wee, 19 years old, a grade 12 student currently studying at Cauayan City National High School Main.
Good day to everyone. I am Atini May R. Lucas, 17 years old, currently studying at Cauayan City National High School main campus as a grade 12 student.
First of all, I want to thank God for this wonderful opportunity to be able to be with such an amazing team. Of course, we can't do anything without the help of each other. I supremely recognize the sacrifices of our parents and most of all our coaches, whom are very willing to actually guide us along the way. We can't really achieve anything that we have right now except but of course, we owe everything from them, and we are very grateful that they're also patient with us along the way. So watch out for our performance because we will truly give our best for this.
There you have them, ladies and gentlemen. Natungayan ho natin ang ating pong mga mag-aaral mula po sa Villa Concepcion National High School, Baculod Extension. And of course, ang ating pong debaters mula po sa Sillawit National High School. And now, bago ho tayo dadako sa ating pong final battle, ladies and gentlemen, gusto ko muna pong pasalamatan ang ating pong Cauayan Festival 2021 sponsors. We would like to say thank you MyPercom, Multiseas, TM, DNF Enterprises, LGU Cauayan, DepEd Cauayan, Isabela State University Cauayan Campus, Brigada News FM Cauayan, JCI Cauayan Bamboo, JCI Senate Isabela, PhilNorth TV Cagayan Valley, and CMD North Star Cable Vision. And of course, to our executive committee for this year's Gawa-Gawayan Festival in the New Normal, led by Honorary Chairman Mayor Bernard Faustino MD, Director General Michael De Guzman Sr., Assistant Director General and President of JCI Cauayan Bamboo, Councilor JCD, City Council members led by Vice Mayor Leoncio Bong Dalin Jr., Councilor Cynthia Wee, Councilor Gary Galotera, Councilor Edgar De Luna, Councilor Egay Atienza, Councilor Porong Malilin, Councilor Paul Mauricio, Councilor Bagnos Maximo, Councilor Rufino Arcega, Councilor Balong Wee, Councilor Balong Asirit, Councilor Cesar JCD Jr., Councilor Victor BJD, Councilor Faustino Gapasin, and Councilor Charlene Quintos. Likewise to our debate team, Chairman Mr. Narsal Foronda of Isabela State University, ISU Cauayan Debate Society, and DepEd Cauayan led by Dr. Alfredo B. Gumaru Jr. The 2021 Gawa-Gawayan Festival in the New Normal first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the final battle. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the moderator, Mr. Narsal Foronda.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've been waiting for. The first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Championship Round. To start with, may I present to you the debaters from Cauayan City National High School. Desiree Quaresma. Cody Nicole Wee. Atin May Lucas. And the researchers, Mark Angelo Agustin and Aaron Vixel Kalimag. From the negative side, our team from the Our Lady of the Pilar College, Cauayan Campus. First, Kasmira Rohini Duria. Second, Carrie Ann Garcia. And third, Kathleen Grace Jacob. The researchers are Kevin Robert Pilar and Gian Carl Vincent M. Mauricio. With the proposition, let it be resolved that face-to-face classes be allowed next school year. Let the battle begin. May we hear the constructive speech from the first speaker of the affirmative side.
Sound check. Sound check. Kung pwedeng maging essential ang lugaw, essential din na ialawang face-to-face classes next school year. To our listeners, adjudicators, and our worthy opponents, good day. Our side strongly agrees to the notion that it be resolved that face-to-face classes be allowed next school year. Now let me clarify, face-to-face classes are not for everyone, but it should remain as an option for other programs that are necessary to the government, especially this time of pandemic. Pursuant to the Interagency Task Force on Management of Emerging and Infectious Diseases Omnibus Guidelines, the CHED and the DOH issued a joint memorandum circular in cognizance of the mandates of RA 11332 or the Mandatory Reporting of Notifiable Diseases and Health Events of Public Health Concern Act, wherein public health authorities are given the statutory and regulatory authority to mandate responsive activities on the part of the schools, which include the regulation of physical classes to control the further spread of infection, outbreaks, or epidemics and prevent reoccurrence. This issuance shall serve as guide for higher education institutions intending to hold limited face-to-face classes during COVID-19 pandemic who are willing to assume the responsibilities for the reopening of their campuses based on their capability to comply with health and safety protocols as the parameter for this debate, including the selected health degree programs regarded as vital in providing additional manpower support in the health system during the pandemic. Medicine, nursing, medical technology or medical laboratory science, physical therapy, midwifery, and public health. Furthermore, the subjects or these courses under these programs that shall be allowed for face-to-face delivery are delimited to specialized laboratory courses or hospital-based clinical clerkship, internship, practicum, including clinical votations for postgraduate medical interns. Second, it is constitutional. As stated in Article 14, Section 2 of the 1987 Constitution, the state shall establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the needs of the people and society. Aplikasyon ang kinakailangan para sa kabutihan ng mga pasyente sa pandemyang ito at sa hinaharap. Third, considering our medical situation, medical students can also be considered as frontline workers according to healthaffairs.org. The rapid spread of COVID-19 will let our healthcare system's ability to effectively triage, diagnose, and care for infected patients. Hospitals across the country are already feeling the strain as their clinicians are increasingly affected, quarantined, or reassigned to new roles. Dr. Glenn Butuyan from Santiago City stated on a video message, "Pagod na pagod na pagod na pagod na po kami. Nauubusan na po kami ng lakas." The same source added, medical students are highly trained workforce that can and should be mobilized in response to this pandemic. Tinanggap na ng mga estudyante na may kaakibat na sakripisyo ang pag-aalaga nila sa mga pasyente nang pumasok sila sa medical schools. Moreover, many would gladly volunteer if given the chance. Data from World Health Organization show that there are 6 medical doctors per 10,000 people in the Philippines in 2017, which is lower than the recommended ratio of 10 doctors per 10,000 population. In 2019, prior to the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, the Human Resources for Health Network led by DOH estimated a shortage of 290,000 health workers in the country. In addition, there is an annual migration of 13,000 healthcare professionals, which aggravates the deficiency in the national supply of healthcare workers according to POEA. And fourth, may panganib na dala ang maling pagsasagawa. According to the National Institute for Health, substantial efforts are focused on the high prevalence of patient harm due to medical errors and mechanisms that prevent the potential role of the medical student as a valuable member of the team in preventing patient harm has often been overlooked. Medical students should be trained to recognize errors and to speak up when errors occur. Medical students should still be allowed to have their face-to-face classes next school year, as 24 universities had already been allowed by the IATF, which will be further discussed by the practicability speaker. Flexible learning is not enough for these medical courses. Hindi lahat kayang maipakita sa online classes at vlogs. They need attention to realistic details. Bakit taaprubahan ng IATF, CHED, at DOH kung hindi naman kailangan? And with that, I am now ready to answer your questions.
First speaker from the negative, start your interpellation.
Mic check. Am I audible? Okay. Okay, so I would like to ask you, how long does the virus spread? From one person to another person. How long does it take to spread? You cannot say? Okay, it can spread in 1 hour. How long does it take for a person to graduate?
4 years.
Okay, and after that, how long do you have to undergo for you to actually be registered?
It doesn't matter if you're registered or not.
Just answer the question.
I did not tackle that on my speech.
Just answer the question. How long does it take? Okay, so basically you're saying the trade-off that you want to make is something that is easily spread versus something that takes years? That's your trade-off?
No, what
so therefore,
we're
their
fighting for
conclusion
is
they want to prolong
face-to-face classes.
They
Can I
want to
qualify my
prolong
answer? Can I qualify my answer, Mr. Moderator?
Proceed.
We are talking about medical students and professionals here. To be honest, mas risky pa nga ang pagbubukas ng malls and other public places wherein hindi naman talaga controlled ang tao.
Okay,
then you want medical... I'm not finished. Then you want medical instructors to stop instructing, students' classes to stop, who follows health and safety protocols better than them.
Okay. Proceed with your next question.
Then answer me is this. Those students that you want to actually go into the medical field, are they experienced in their field? Will they be experienced if they actually just entered?
They have to have experience. That's our point.
So you're saying that they can get it even, can you recognize that even during this pandemic, even if we allow face-to-face classes, limitations will still exist?
Of course, that's
So
why there are
therefore,
guidelines.
their best option is gap years, isn't that correct? So that they can fully use the optimum training.
No,
can
they have to have
so you're
face-to-face
saying-
classes.
So you
Paano
just
sila
agree that they would
mag-oopera?
not get the optimum training at this time. Next point. You are aware about how the coronavirus spreads, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So then you understand the risks that you are promoting, isn't that correct?
The medical students,
Just
as I
answer
have
me,
stated,
yes or no?
No.
So you are saying that so you can't deny that in cases like this, and thus most probably students too, like
Students
you will
will
not
not
be
have.
aware of what the risks are.
Do you have sources that medical students actually have?
I'm saying,
COVID?
you said that you are not aware of the risk, so therefore you are concluding that students, even like
I
you,
am
are
aware.
not aware. So therefore you are aware. So you are aware about what you are
But
trying to
they will
propagate
not
at this
have
time.
COVID because
So
there
you
are no
saying-
statistical data that they will have.
But can you cite a study in which the virus didn't start from one person? That it can't spread from one person?
It can spread, however, it will
So
not infect
therefore,
the students.
How would that not affect the students? Tell
Because
me, how are they immune?
Because they are the ones who supremely follow the healthcare protocols. If
How
we were
are
to
you
stop,
sure that
if
they
we
would
will
follow
stop
the
face-to-face
protocols?
classes,
Are you
and then
aware
we
that
will
in
have to
CSU
stop
right
every
now-
for
business
the answer,
establishment.
please. Wait for the answer.
Then we will have to stop every establishment because we are talking about medical
But you have
students here,
alternatives. But you
not
have
public
alternatives
people.
for school, like gap years.
There are no such thing as sources which actually say that there are medical
But you
students
said
who are
that there are
infected.
alternatives. You
You
cannot
are
deny that
stating
there
an
are
opinion, Ms.
alternatives.
Speaker. That is an
not
opinion.
I am asking you the question. Can you deny that there are alternatives?
Time's up. Okay, first speaker from the negative, it's your time to deliver your constructive speech.
My test. A pleasant day to all. My arguments takes place through three perspectives. The perspective of the Philippine government, the perspective of schools, and lastly, the perspective of the general public. The Philippine government's main role in this situation is the preservation of public health, economic stability, and even peace. With that, we must all realize that no matter how specific and particular the limitations set by the affirmative side, allowing face-to-face classes will still be detrimental in achieving this goal. We cannot say that it is necessary to allow face-to-face classes as alternatives are present to continue their income generation and purpose. Even if, let's say, that was inefficient, no matter how much the affirmative side wants to dwindle the number of students and the hours of exposure with each other, the danger of the generation of new waves of infection is still present. No matter what restrictions by how the government has handled the pandemic so far, it is so adamant that we are not equipped to enforce protocols to the degree that we need to. Without face-to-face classes, we recorded 819,164 cases from January 3 to April 8 alone, according to the World Health Organization. If the government wants to do their side well, or their jobs well, they have to recognize that adding another way for the virus to spread in exchange for a slightly more conducive educational strategy is something that we cannot compromise for anymore. Now let's talk about the schools. The affirmative side would probably argue the fixable issues regarding online and modular learning and attack its impacts to the division of the rich and the poor and for medical courses or hands-on training. In that case, allowing face-to-face classes is not the answer. Even if they centralize this for courses that are medical, the students will still lose the level of interactive training because allowing face-to-face classes does not mean that limitations will no longer exist. They still cannot be trained to the full extent as before. And we have to bear in mind that new medical professionals are not the most vital in this situation because in the end, they would be relatively new to the field. They are basically inexperienced. Their best option is actually recommending a gap year because only then can we fully utilize face-to-face classes without becoming an accessory to the worsening of a national crisis. With the difference between the rich and the poor, we believe that the poor should not be treated like dispensable people who we would allow to be put at risk in any way. With everything else, what is necessary is further enhancement, advancement, and utilization of the modes of learning that we can access now, which are modular and online classes. Lastly, we have the students and the general public. We recognize the inevitable mental and social implications of the pandemic. However, allowing face-to-face classes will only make this more prominent. This might seem reasonable to the 433 out of 1,500 municipalities with 0 cases as stated by CNN, but we have to recognize how the virus easily spreads from just one person. According to John Sensokovic, MD, on August 27, 2020, the virus can last for 2 days on clothes and 7 days on exposed metal or plastic. According to WebMD, it can even last in the air for 3 hours. As stated by the World Health Organization, the virus can spread when an infected person coughs, sneezes, speaks, sings, or even just breathes heavily. What is most concerning is how, according to the New York Times on May 2020, a coronavirus patient is most infectious 2 to 3 days before they even show symptoms. Don't even start with the vaccine, as according to the World Health Organization's list of priorities of which the Philippine government is adapting, the general public or the students are not even considered a priority. According to the CBCP annual meeting conducted at the University of Santo Tomas on January 17, 2021, the waves of the vaccine that will come for the actual priorities will come between July until December. Basically, students would most probably go to school unvaccinated. Even more so because, as stated in the same seminar, 40% of Filipinos are not even sure if they want to be vaccinated. Even if, let's say, they all get miraculously vaccinated by the start of the next school year, which is already on August, a new variant has been discovered in the Philippines that is more infectious, has immune escape capabilities, and is highly resistant to neutralizing bodies like vaccines. Remember that this pandemic that has rampaged us all started from one person. Let us not allow that one person to endanger the somewhat safe areas and further devastate the devastated. No one is an exception. And with all that, I am so proud to oppose.
First speaker from the affirmative, proceed with your interpellation.
Hello? Sound check. Okay, so Ms. Speaker, did you understand the parameter
Yes.
and my speech correctly?
Yes, I have clarified in
Okay,
my speech.
so
that
would you
even
agree
those
with me if I
parameters,
say
they
that
are
face-to-face classes is not for everyone?
Yes, I have stated
Would you
that.
agree with me if I say that the Article 14, Section 2 of the 1987 Constitution should be upheld?
Yes, and that is why
Okay, so
everyone
would
should
you
be
agree with
protected
me
at
if
this
I say
time.
that
Their
RA
job is to protect
11332...
us. That is their
Listen
job.
to me, okay?
Be
I'm
responsive
asking.
with the question, Ms. Speaker.
Okay, would you agree with me if I say that RA 11332 should be upheld?
Yes, and it will be
Okay,
upheld
so
on our
would you
side.
agree with me if I say that medical students are different from students under DepEd or students in general? That's why you're talking about. That's what
Yes,
you're
but
talking
they are
about.
inexperienced in
Okay,
their field.
we did not say that they will actually operate or what. They need internship. So would
Even
you
if
agree
they-
with me if
so
I
you're
say that
basically
medical
putting
students are different
interns.
from students under DepEd?
So you want
Okay,
the
so would
people
you
to
agree
be
with
under
me
the
if I
hands of
say that
interns?
you are not
one at a
answering
time,
me,
please.
Ms. Speaker? Would you agree with me if I say that Philippines is in need of medical workers now?
What we need is a shorter
Okay,
pandemic.
do you believe that that the stated medical students should pay attention to realistic details while they are studying as
Yes,
it is
and we
vital
can
for
only
their courses?
experience that after the
Okay.
pandemic.
So, did you know that it is not mandatory for students? It is
Even
optional.
So, even so,
It is optional.
You're
actually prohibiting them the option to help the people even if they want to?
because they are
Okay,
inexperienced.
so
I have
are you
stated that
aware of
multiple
the
times.
guidelines to be followed when there is face-to-face classes? Are you aware?
As shown by the cases number
are you
as
aware? You
stated
are
in
not.
my
Okay, you
speech.
are not.
I
Are
have
you
stated
learning?
in my speech the protocols are inefficient.
Okay, so you know. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the first two speakers. Now let's proceed with the second speaker from the affirmative.
Hello? Kung noon, mayroon tayong ma'am at sir na matatakbuhan sa ating silid-aralan, ngunit dahil sa peligro dulot ng pandemya, we suddenly shifted to ma, pa, ate o kuya. Paano kaya ito sa loob ng ating mga tahanan? Good day to each and everyone, especially to our honorable adjudicators and members of the opposing team. Learning will not be the same again for students striving for their right to education. That is why, as the second speaker of the affirmative side, allow me to share 3 important points why allowing face-to-face classes, especially for medical courses, is beneficial. First point, it provides a better learning experience for students. Even though the transition of traditional classes to distance and flexible learning aims to ensure the student's safety while pursuing education, however, we cannot deny the Philippine education system still has a hard time adapting to the sudden major shift of distance learning in this time of pandemic. Ayon nga sa pag-aaral ng Social Weather Station, mayroon tayong 89 na mga estudyanteng nagsasabing mas mahirap ang blended learning kaysa sa traditional na face-to-face classes as there are existing barriers when studying at home. According to a study by Dr. Rory Baculod of the UP College of Medicine, most of the students, especially in medical-related courses, had a difficulty adjusting in learning styles because first, they have a hard time understanding the materials on their own. Second, most of them have struggles balancing between school requirements and household responsibilities. And more importantly, not everyone has the same privilege of carving out a conducive learning environment at home. The quality of internet connection varies. Living situation varies. Magkakaiba tayo ng estado at pamumuhay. Ang mabagal na internet, magulo, at maingay na paligid ay talaga nga namang nakaka-stress, hindi ba? With all that's happening around in our society, it is so hard to just hunch over our lessons without being distracted. Considering these factors, Clifford Sorita of the Veritas Truth Society also stated, students are highly prone to experience frustration and anxiety, also because of the overwhelming increase in academic workload. At least when you are in school, you have your classmates, friends, and of course, the teachers who are really trained to help you with the learning process. Hindi yung para ka nagsa-self-study most of the time ngayong distance learning, hindi ba? Second point, they are free from technological barriers. Whether students have all the complete resources for distance learning or not, the availability of fast and reliable internet connection was always a bigger concern for everyone. Given the current infrastructure in a developing country like ours, this results in a digital divide between those who do have access and those who do not. Not to mention the sudden brownouts or Wi-Fi maintenance that can interrupt our learning process any moment. On the other hand, even if we also have the modular and asynchronous classes, Dr. Lucia de la Cruz pointed out in a recent webinar series of CHEDs, Getting Ready for the Limited Face-to-Face and Balik Eskwela, distance learning is not as effective as the face-to-face learning setup, especially for health-allied courses, which usually require laboratory experiments, hospital-based clinical clerkship, internship, practicum, including clinical rotations for postgraduate medical interns dahil iba pa rin kapag natututo ka ng may kasamang gabay ng mga guro at instructors. Lastly, teachers are able to teach better in a classroom setup. In this way, we are able to lessen the burdens of our teachers because like students, teachers also have to adapt to the current learning management while trying their best to motivate their students to participate and comply to course requirements. Because not all teachers are tech-savvy enough to familiarize and utilize the different online platforms. Moreover, Dr. Lucia de la Cruz also emphasized the need for teachers to personally supervise their students, especially those in medical courses. That is being prioritized by CHED because face-to-face learning provides an opportunity for hands-on practice to properly and efficiently execute its learnings in real life that distance learning can struggle to replicate. Dahil hindi sapat na medical terminologies at theoretical concepts lang ang matutunan ng mga estudyanteng ito, kailangan din nila ng personal application in real-life situations, especially in this time of crisis. We need to produce efficient and well-equipped frontliners na mas makatutulong sa paglutas ng krisis sapagkat sa kanila nakasalalay ang buhay ng bawat tao. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, these points and arguments I have presented firmly justify and reassert that face-to-face classes is beneficial. Thank you.
Second speaker from the negative, please proceed with your interpellation.
Good morning, Ms. Speaker.
Good
Since
morning.
it's my time to ask my questions, I would appreciate a yes or no, and I will ask for your explanation if I do so.
Sure.
So now, Ms. Speaker, is it your contention that face-to-face classes is something beneficial in the part of the
Yes, of
students
course.
and teachers?
Yes.
Yes. Now, would you agree with me, Ms. Speaker, if I say that protocols and guidelines were set provided the moment the President declared lockdown in the country last year? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Now, are you aware, Ms. Speaker, of the total number of COVID-19 cases
Yes.
in the Philippines?
Yes.
Yes. Now, may you state how many yesterday?
We have more than 10,000.
Oh, 10,000. Let me enlighten you, Mrs. Speaker, that 800,000 were the cases. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we even with the implementation of the protocols, we cannot remove the element of risk. Next, Ms. Speaker, would you agree with me if I say that COVID-19 can be transmitted through surface and person,
Yes.
especially in public?
Yes, but as long as you are following the strict health protocols, you
I've
will not
had
be
enough
transmitted with the
information, Mrs.
disease.
Speaker. Now, may you enlighten me about public places?
Pardon?
May you enlighten
We are
me
talking
about
about
public places?
public schools.
Mrs. Speaker,
This is different
please
from
answer
public
the
places
question,
that these
Mrs.
units are
Speaker.
going to-
Mrs. Speaker, please answer the question.
Yes.
May you please enlighten me about public places?
What do you mean by that question?
Okay,
Because
you
we are
not
talking about
you
the
are not
schools
aware about public
allowing
places.
students
Now let
to
me
go to
enlighten
these places.
Mrs. Speaker.
We are not talking about
One at
public
a time,
places.
please.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mrs. Speaker, public places is where people are in quantities. Now, would you agree with me
These students
with
will
limited
not go to these public places that you are
Wait for
talking
the
about.
question.
Now, in limited face-to-face classes, there will be quantities of teachers and students in the classroom.
Yes.
Isn't that correct? Yes. Now, with that being said, you're actually in our position that public places like schools can be a place of transmission of COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why we are prone to the virus. Okay,
These are public places,
Mrs.
but as I
Speaker,
stated
this is my
earlier-
time to
Wait
ask
for the
questions.
question.
Okay.
For the last time, Ms. Speaker, are you aware that COVID-19 can be transmitted? Are you aware of the advantages and disadvantages of face-to-face classes during this pandemic?
Yes, of course.
Yes, you are aware. Now, can you at least cite me 2 disadvantages of face-to-face classes?
As what I have stated earlier.
Can you cite me 2 disadvantages
As I have stated
of
earlier, it
face-to-face
can
classes?
also
Please
affect our
answer.
Wait
psychology.
for the answer. Wait for the answer.
As I have stated earlier, what is your question?
Give me 2 disadvantages of face-to-face classes.
I think there is none as long as you are following the health
There
protocols.
is, Miss Speaker. Let me give you at least 2 because people are vulnerable and there is a weak implementation
But
of
as long-
protocols.
Proceed with your
But
next
with
question. Proceed with your next question.
With that, this is the reason why we cannot pursue face-to-face classes because
But
some
as
people
long
are
as-
not
Proceed
aware of
with
the
your
detriment.
next question.
This is my conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, speaker from the negative, proceed with your constructive speech.
We cannot see the risk with a glance, dig deep into instances, and mobilize the volition of health. Greetings to our members of the panel, members of the opposing team, and to our team. We on the negative side highly oppose in conducting face-to-face classes next school year, and as the second negative speaker, I will prove to you that having face-to-face classes are unfavorable, harmful, and disadvantageous. Yes, we can claim that education is imperative, but in our context, we cannot sacrifice health over academics. Are we even prepared for the aftermath, or do we even have contingencies? This pandemic will always rely on the people. We do not have the same conditions, and with this pandemic, people are at threat. The other side may claim that there is no effectivity in online learning, but if there are physical classes, now, how about those who are prohibited from going to schools? This is a conclusion of seclusion. First and foremost, we oppose in having face-to-face classes for the reason that the virus does not pick its victim. Studying the nature of COVID-19, one attacks the weak immune system until it deteriorates the entirety of the body. As stated by the PMC National Library of Health and Medicine, at the bracket of childhood and adulthood, this is where the maturity of the immune system is in process of being adaptive, while it's at the peak where it can be prone to risk, which can be shaped by immunology. However, as per the interim National Immunization Technical Advisory Group from the vaccination program, we are at the lower bracket. With that, 32,307 Philippine COVID-19 cases are aged 0 to 19, proven that it has a detrimental effect on students, especially with those who have illnesses. Retorting that there are protocols followed, the virus can be accumulated anywhere. People within the family, surfaces of public areas, and those people they come across with when going to school. Moreover, it is harmful because even with the strictest adherence, it is close to impossible. In Sillawit, students are unlikely to obey behavioral pledges for social distancing. Albeit, if we say that they are learners and they are aware of what is happening, it is still inevitable for them to contract the virus since students would be overwhelmed in conducting physical classes. Fact check on the healthline.com, parents and individuals are having a rough time observing social distancing. Then how can pondering be mitigated in schools? Additionally, they cannot follow the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines as provided by several interviews outlined by CDC. Namely, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas schools, saying that students being crowded tend to take off their masks, make clusters, and with no ventilation. They are kids and they are aware of what is happening, and to those who are not primed with the effects of the virus, they would most probably neglect the case without hesitation. With that, the anxiousness and stress are contributors in the deteriorating immunity of people whom are students and parents. Not only that they are vulnerable in this case, but transportation, even the public health, does not admit to the same sustainability. Lastly, why is it unfavorable? Is that with all inadequate facilities which are needed to ensure quality education, older faculty and staff, immunocompromised individuals, and certain groups are at higher risk of contracting the virus. As reported by the CDC, little evidence had been produced in transmission of COVID-19 in the instance of having face-to-face classes. There had been 32 infections recorded in 11 school districts in North Carolina. In our locality, we are mindful about the vicinity where students were positive of COVID in conducting physical classes, which is near impossible. This data are foreign. However, it is irrelevant since this had been conducted, which results to the opposite. That is eventually a contributing factor of the infection to students, teachers, parents, and elders. From consecutive lockdowns and quarantines, we are not even sure if transportations are disinfected. This is due harm mentally, physiologically, psychologically, and a cause of selectivity. Thus, with the number of students, would people think they can accommodate them? Yes, there are implementations or protocols, but how come those schools determine who has the conditions of illnesses? How can it be extrapolated when all schools are not in the same criteria provided? This is the second negative speaker, and my contention is having face-to-face classes is unfavorable, harmful, and disadvantageous. Although that this is for the next school year, we will not know the condition beforehand. With that, I am proud to contravene. Thank you.
Second speaker from the affirmative, proceed with your interpellation.
Good day, Ms. Speaker.
Good day.
Okay, so first of all, we want to reiterate the parameters that we have stated, that the people we are allowing to go to face-to-face classes are just college students that are classified by CHED and IATF, which is different from the public places that you are.
Then what is your question?
So my first question is, do you agree with me when I say that malls are considered public places?
Yes, these are public places, but then this has the necessities.
No question. I'm proceeding to my next question. So are you aware of the different courses allowed for face-to-face classes?
Yes.
Okay, so are you aware that these courses have several activities that needs hands-on training and application of lessons?
We are not pressuring those students, but
I'm asking for a yes or no question,
Yes.
Speaker. Third question. Will you agree with me if I say that activities like laboratory experiments and clinical internships can be done effectively through distance learning?
What we are aiming here is
Answer
that
me a yes
we
or no
want to
question. I am
improve
only
the
asking for a
online.
yes or no question.
Yes.
Okay, so you are agreeing. Okay, so are you also aware of the joint memorandum circular number 2, 2021 and 1 by the CHED and DOH?
Yes, with reservation, Ms. Speaker.
So then you are agreeing that face-to-face learning in these courses should be allowed. Next question. Are you aware of the recent study conducted by the Veritas Youth Survey regarding the perceptions of Filipino students in distance learning?
Yes, with reservation,
Okay.
Ms. Speaker.
Will you agree with me when I say that distance learning can cause psychological stress such as anxiety?
According
among
to
students?
PNA, Ms.
Answer me a
Speaker,
yes
there
or
is
no
no
question.
correlation between those
But I
stress
am
and
asking for a
distance
different
learning.
Answer the
Ms.
question,
Speaker.
Ms. Speaker.
Qualified no.
Okay, no. So, will you agree with me when I say that distance learning, regardless of the learning modality, can cause the feeling of being burnt out among
Ms.
students?
Speaker, according to PNA, there is no correlation between
yes or no
psychological
question.
and the
I am
distance
Answer
learning.
the question, Ms. Speaker.
No, qualified no.
Okay. So then, are you aware I mean, will you agree with me when I say that psychological stress like this can affect one's performance in studying?
No.
Okay, no. If you said no earlier, as revealed by the 2020 Veritas Truth Survey, there are majority of students
Proceed
both
with the
college
question. Proceed with the question.
So do you think distance learning is beneficial for every student?
We need to improve
I
online
am
learning.
asking for
We
a
need
yes or no
to, in this
question.
context, it is not.
Okay, that would be all. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's proceed with the speaker, third speaker from the affirmative.
Hello. Start. Okay.
Good day, spectators, the judges, and our worthy opponents. There are health guidelines issued by our government and the DOH to ensure that the spread of the COVID-19 virus is controlled. We are also obligated to wear proper face masks, carry hand sanitizers, and maintain our distance from other people. Nang nagbukas ba ang mga malls at iba pang mga pampublikong lugar, hindi ba sila pinagsusuot ng face mask? Were they not encouraged to maintain their distance? Anong meron sa mga pampublikong lugar na pwede na silang puntahan ng mga kabataan na wala sa mga universidad? Especially if we're talking about a university filled with medical students. Whether or not the resumption of face-to-face classes next school year is practicable is not up for debate. It is practicable. One, public establishments are already open with their own set of guidelines that are being implemented to ensure the safety of the people. Tignan na lang natin ang SM Cauayan. Kapag pumasok ka sa kahit anong store doon, you are obligated to file a piece of paper with your information for contact tracing. Maraming checkpoint na kung saan kukunin ng mga guards ang temperature mo. How would that be applied in a university setting? Take the Our Lady of Fatima University, for example. They have implemented a community safety policy for the limited face-to-face classes. They have stated in a webinar series of CHED #Kamalayan that it is being strictly carried out in all of their campuses. A body temperature higher than 37.5 degrees Celsius will be refused entry, and they also have a no mask, no entry policy. In the words of Senator Nancy Binay, what's ironic? Pinayagan natin ng mga bata na lumabas at magbakasyon at pumunta sa malls which are high-risk environments kaysa sa school na mas controlled ang setup? Take note, bata, ages 15 and above, pwede na silang gumala sa mga malls and other public places, pwera na lang sa paaralan? And we're still restricting college students. Let me reiterate our point, our parameters, which are college medical students, ages 18 and above. With all the malls and public areas that are open, bakit hindi natin payagan ng medical students na pumasok sa kanilang mga universidad? Given the fact that the graduates of the allied programs will be helpful for the workforce of the health sectors. According to International Immunization Technical Advisory Group, medical students are considered as frontline workers. These medical students, being frontliners, are allowed to leave their homes. Therefore, it is doable to have medical students resume their face-to-face classes for the next school years. Isa pa, being a medical students and a frontliners means that it is their responsibility to abide to the Joint Memorandum Circular Number 2021-001 by the Commission on Higher Education and the Department of Health. 2, the joint memorandum laid out the qualification for colleges applying for face-to-face classes, meaning all the colleges that will be approved have passed the standard to conduct it. Hindi basta-basta ang pagbubukas ng face-to-face classes sa kolehiyo. May standard na dapat mong ma-meet bago ng mga colleges na yan bago nila magawa yan. Nakalagay din sa Section 7D of the memorandum na magkakaroon ng cyclical student shifting para malimitahan ang mga mag-aaral sa isang classroom. The community safety policy of OLFU is also based on the joint memorandum. 3, the Commission on Higher Education, or the CHED, had already allowed 24 colleges in the country to hold a limited face-to-face classes starting this second semester of the current school year. an emphasis on allowed dahil nag-apply ang mga 24 colleges na yan bago sila payagan ng CHED at ng DOH under the Joint Memorandum Circular. In an article from CNN Philippines, University of Santo Tomas, one of the 24 colleges allowed to have limited face-to-face classes, said its medicine, medtech, physical therapy, and nursing programs will have limited face-to-face classes, particularly for internship, clerkship, and practicum programs. Pinapakita ng limited face-to-face classes ng mga kolehiyo na yan na kaya na nating magkaroon ng face-to-face classes for the medical students at the very least next school year. It is indeed practicable because we currently have 24 colleges that are allowed to have limited face-to-face classes. To not resume face-to-face classes for the next school year is like a step back when we have already conducted a limited one. Ika nga ni Dr. Jose Rizal, ang kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. Ngunit paano sila magiging pag-asa ng bayan kung nalilimitahan ng kanilang
Time's up, Ms.
pag-aaral?
Speaker.
With
The
that said,
speaker
I am
from the
ready for
negative,
the interpellation.
please proceed with your interpellation.
Hello, sound check. Good day, Ms. Speaker. I would highly appreciate a yes or no answer, and I would ask you to explain only if it's needed. So, Ms. Speaker, can you state the allocated fund for face-to-face classes next school year? So you cannot. Mrs. Speaker, if I may clarify, you believe that face-to-face classes are feasible even during the pandemic, yes or no?
It is already allowed,
Yes or
therefore
no?
it is
Yes or
feasible.
no? Yes, so you must be aware that the guidelines and requirements set by CHED and IRTF only limit the interaction but do not actually stop it, yes or no?
That's the purpose.
Yes or no?
Yes.
So would you agree with me if I say that these guidelines, so you said yes, therefore the possibility of the transmission of the virus, despite
you
the
wearing a
protocols,
face
is
mask?
still present. Therefore, you are agreeing to say that
We are not.
it does
I am
not
not.
limit the interaction.
I
Next
did not
question.
say that. Stop putting
It does
words
not-
on my
You
mouth.
wait for the question.
Mrs.
to
Speaker,
be
is it your
finished.
position that in a limited face-to-face classes, there is physical attendance among the teachers and students? Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So would you agree with me if I say that physical attendance means sharing the same room with your teachers and students?
Yes.
Now, Mrs. Speaker, are you aware that the virus usually spreads when a group of people are confined in an
May I
enclosed
qualify
space?
my answer?
Yes or no?
May I qualify my answer, please?
Go ahead.
As I have stated in my speech, we wear face masks in public. We carry hand sanitizers. Are you not aware of the
Therefore,
community
yes or no?
safety policy?
This is my time
No,
to answer
I
your
am-
question.
I
Don't
have
ask me a
qualified
question.
my
You wait.
Hello.
The speaker is qualifying her answer.
I have qualified my answer. Thank you. As I have stated in my
Proceed with the
qualified your
next
answer.
question.
Yes,
Proceed
I
with
have
the next
qualified
question.
your answer.
As I have stated
Mrs.
in my
Speaker, you are in a position.
in my speech,
You have
OLF,
qualified
you
your
have a
answer.
community
Ms. Speaker.
safety policy.
Mrs. Speaker, you have
Proceed with the
qualified
next
your
question.
answer. Mrs. Speaker, you are in a position that it is safe to conduct limited face-to-face classes, yes or no?
Yes.
Then would you agree with me, Mrs. Speaker, if I say that areas classified as low risk now are areas classified high risk now are once considered low risk? Yes or no?
Yes.
So therefore, would you agree? You would agree with our side that conducting
No, I would
face-to-face
not
classes
agree
would
with your
promote
side.
higher
That is-
cases.
You wait for the question to be finished, Ms. Speaker.
Okay, next question. Mrs. Speaker, would you agree with me if I say that face-to-face classes were suspended last March 2020 so that the virus would be prevented to spread to the students? Yes or no?
Are you aware that there is
Yes
a
or
limited
no?
face-to-face
Yes or
classes
no?
right now?
Yes or no?
I
You
am
answer.
aware.
Yes or no? Yes.
am
So
aware.
can you recall the total number of active cases last March 16?
That is not my responsibility.
Okay, so you cannot. Then can you recall
That
the
is not
latest
my
number of
responsibility to
active
say.
cases as of yesterday?
As of yesterday?
Yes. Latest number of active cases.
What?
As of yesterday.
That is not my responsibility to say.
Okay, then you cannot provide. So therefore,
I cannot
which
provide.
situation
That
is
is
far
not
more
my
worse?
purpose.
Our situation last March 16,
Proceed with the
2020,
question.
or
Proceed.
our situation today? Which is worse?
There is a decreasing number
Which
of...
is worse?
Which is worse?
Which is worse? Of the situation last March 2020 or today?
Last March 2020 or today. We have already conducted a limited
you answer the
face-to-face
question.
classes.
Time's up. Okay. Third speaker from the negative, proceed with your constructive speech.
Hello, sound check. A pleasant morning to everyone here today. I am Kathleen Jacob and I stand here before you as the third speaker of the negative side. And let me present to you 3 arguments by questioning the doability of the proposition, considering the current state of the Philippines amidst the pandemic. First, in terms of money. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not just solely focus on the burdens of the students, but let us also consider the current financial status of the Philippines and the schools during this pandemic. Alam nating lahat na ang Pilipinas ay baon na sa utang. As of February 2021, the Philippine government's debt reached a new peak amounting to 10.4 10.405 trillion pesos as stated by the Bureau of Treasury. And as of March 12, the Philippines has again secured $900 million, about 43.67 billion pesos from the World Bank and Asian Development Bank for its purchase of COVID-19 vaccine. Now, we are all aware that the issue of classroom shortage has been present even before the pandemic, where a class of 75 to 80 students were packed into one classroom supposedly meant for a class of only 40. And this is something to be alarmed of, given the fact that we must practice physical distancing at all times during this pandemic. Hindi naman kasi pwede na kung ano yung classroom na iniwan natin last year, ay yun pa rin ang babalikan natin. We need to realize that schools need to adapt to the protocols imposed by WHO and DOH. And adapting these protocols needs money. And do schools have the money? No, because according to the education sector, 865 out of more than 14,000 private schools have closed down because they didn't have enough enrollees. And low enrollees means low money. And the problem about money is not only limited to private schools, it is also present in public schools. According to the proposed 2021 national budget by the Department of Budget and Management, the education sector has an allocated budget of 753.3 billion pesos. And in this said budget, 24.1 billion pesos is allocated for basic education facilities. So and the biggest question here, is this enough for all of the schools here in the Philippines, given the fact that the Philippines ranked 115 out of 180 countries in Transparency International's Perception Index in 2020? Meaning corruption is so prominent here. May kasiguraduhan pa tayo na ang perang nakalaan para sa mga schools ay makakarating ba talaga kung saan ito nararapat? Wala, di ba? Second, on pilot testing. On February 24, DepEd has released an official statement about the conduct of pilot face-to-face classes here in the Philippines. They've stated that they will adhere to the decision of President Duterte on extending the postponement of pilot face-to-face classes here in our country. With that being said, it is clear that as of today, there is no single school that is under a pilot face-to-face class implementation. So given the fact that colleges are now in their second semester, public schools are now in their third grading period, and private schools are now near to ending their school year, and yet there is no pilot face-to-face classes happening, how will the safety be ensured in the proposed resumption of face-to-face classes next school year? Let me share with you that 2 of the faculty members of the main campus of Isabela State University tested positive for COVID-19, and 1 of them died. In Dr. Cecilia Putong National High School, Bohol Province most populated school, 14 teachers tested positive for COVID-19. And the same goes in Marikina, Makati, Las Piñas, and in Pasay according to the Alliance of Concerned Teachers. Imagine wala pang face-to-face classes tapos may nagpa-positive na within the campuses. How much more would it be if we would allow face-to-face classes to happen? Third, on the actual implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is clearly stated in the 1987 Constitution, Article 14, Section 2, that the state shall encourage non-formal, informal, and indigenous learning system, as well as self-learning, independent and out-of-school study programs, particularly those that respond to the community needs, which means that the state does not solely see the face-to-face classes as the only way for students to learn, especially that our country is facing a pandemic. With that being said, it is clear that as of today, the safest way for the learning method is distance learning. Professor Lacandula C. Garcia of the LSU Dasmariñas said in an interview that whether it be dry run or actual implementation, many lives are to be put at risk. Hindi lamang buhay ng guro, kundi buhay rin ng mga bata. We must realize that schools, teachers, and students do not stay permanently in school, and the risk of being infected when a teacher or student is outside the school premises is even higher. Okay, let's say that there's only a portion of the class that will attend face-to-face classes. Maybe 20 out of 50. But then, hindi ba teacher naman ang magdudusa kasi may klase na nga siya online, may klase pa siya physically. But then, if the whole class decides to attend to the face-to-face classes, it would create a higher risk because the classroom will be too crowded and the actions of the student will be harder to control. With that being said, I strongly believe that we should stay in distance learning because I guarantee you that face-to-face classes during this time will not work because both the government and the schools are not ready. And this will put many lives at risk, including the lives of the teachers, students, and even their families. With that, I, as the third speaker, is proud to oppose.
Speaker. Third speaker from the affirmative, proceed with your interpellation.
Hello? Ms. Speaker, are you aware of the Joint Memorandum Circular Number 2021-001 by TED and DOH?
Yes, with reservation.
Then you are aware that it is a guideline that allows the limited face-to-face classes during this second semester for the college
Yes,
students?
with reservation.
Yes. Are you aware that they have allowed 24 College to hold a limited face-to-face classes this school year?
Yes, with reservation.
Are you aware that this limited face-to-face classes is a gradual and cautious approach to
It is not
reopening?
strictly followed, therefore no.
How do you?
The guidelines are not strictly followed, therefore it is not implemented well.
They are, because it is stated.
No, it
and
is not.
Proceed with your question.
Would you agree with me if I say that it is their intention to resume face-to-face classes next school year, the CHED and the DOH?
No.
It is not their intention, so the limited face-to-face classes.
It was
this
postponed.
semester,
That is why it is not their intention
not.
anymore.
Proceed with the next question, please.
You have stated that no questions needed. No more questions.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that will be the last speech. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's now proceed with the rebuttal speech. May we have the rebuttal speaker from the negative side?
Mic check. Am I audible? Okay. So I would like to start my speech by stating that I will first address the individual blunders of each speaker, and then I will tackle their entire point as a whole. So let's talk about the first speaker. And basically in her speech, she stated about these 24 schools. I would like to reiterate that these 24 schools, none of which of them are in low-risk areas. Therefore, their side is propagating that we should allow classes in cases of which risks are higher, especially now that we cannot trace the virus completely to every single person who has it. Now, she talked about she wants to enforce medical students. She wants to enforce that somewhat medical students are immune to the virus, saying that they are different, they follow protocols, without even stating or without even considering that just because they're medical students doesn't mean that they are necessarily responsible in a way, and doesn't mean that necessarily the protocols are effective in a way. And that is what she's trying to disregard during the entire interpellation. Then she admitted that she was unaware of the risk, thus propagating my point that even in cases like this, even in a debate where we have to know the risks, she just wasn't aware of it. And this could be applied to the students as well, even the medical students. Now let's talk about the beneficiality speaker, and she was saying na mas mahirap ang blended learning. Oh my gosh, sobrang hirap. But our point is, we're not saying that it is going to be easier to the face-to-face classes. We are not saying that the point is it's easier to have face-to-face classes. We're saying that it is safer, because we have to reiterate that we are in a national crisis that cannot be solved not unless we take further steps, or we go the extra mile, basically. That is our point. And if that is her entire problem, I have stated in my speech that if they have problems with modular and online classes, then let's deal with that. Let's propagate it. Let's improve it. That is the point, so that we can utilize it to the best of our capability. Now, she was talking about not everyone has the option for online class, basically rich, poor case scenario, but they want to put the poor people in a situation of which their only choice to go to school is to go to a place where they are at risk of infection. So in order for them to be a graduate, they have to go into a social situation of which their life is at risk, their family is at risk, their lola and lolo could die. Now let's talk about, in her interpellation, she conceded that a school is a public place and therefore the pandemic is ever present there. And then she talked about the parameters of which they were trying to say that we are out of bounds. But the entirety of what we're saying is, no matter how much they dwindle the situation or make it look like though there's ang konti-konti lang nila, they're trying to reiterate na, oh, this case is different. We're saying that it's just the same as every single case scenario. And then she was talking about psychological stress, of which our side has made clear that you cannot pinpoint that only to face-to-face classes, the lack of face-to-face classes. And lastly, the main point they're making about malls. What we are trying to show to here, these established open because if they didn't open, they would go bankrupt. Unlike schools right now, of which are open, are generating income without being an accessory to a national crisis. Now let's go to their main points. They're talking about the need for more manpower, of which they're treating these medical students as interns. Therefore, they want to put the lives of the people who are dying from the virus, dying from the new variant of the virus, to people who are just graduated, people who have no actual experience in the actual field, because the class is very different from the main thing or the real thing. They're talking about it is constitutional because it's relevant to the needs. But our side says that what the needs of the times right now is actually to end the pandemic, because only then will we actually be able to pursue face-to-face classes efficiently and effectively. And we're talking about the difficulty to adjust. It's been a year, and I think if we give more time and effort to it, students and teachers could adjust to this learning modem and make it more effective and more conducive in their side. And then they're talking about medical students need more hands-on experience, of which we conceded, yes, they need more experience, and that's why if they want to have the full experience, take a gap year. Because only then, when the pandemic is over, can they actually go to classes without the limitations of the pandemic, which is still present even on their side. Now they're talking about protocols. They're trying to enforce this illusion that face masks and hand sanitizers are enough, of which this is not, because I have stated in my speech that a new variant is present in the Philippines, which has immune escape capabilities and is actually immune to neutralizing bodies like vaccine. If the vaccine cannot protect it from that variant, those hand sanitizers won't work. And then they're talking about malls and different establishments, of which I have reiterated again. That is a different case scenario. If the malls don't open right now, they're going to close overall. And then lastly, they're trying to enforce that, oh, right now during this debate, we are wearing masks. While as you can stay or see here right now, they're actually whispering behind me. So therefore, there is still close contact with each other, because for us to talk to each other, we have to communicate. We have to whisper to each other so that the other team won't hear it. And that would most probably apply to face-to-face classes that they're trying to propagate. Basically, our side here is trying to show to you how their side is not efficient or is not the vital thing that is needed right now. They're trying to is not needed right now. And basically, they're talking about the joint memorandum, of which schools are now doing it right now. So if they were allowed, so it's okay that we have to allow, because it's already allowed, which is not the point, because basically, just because you allow face-to-face classes in some instances doesn't mean that it was effective, doesn't mean that it's efficient, and doesn't mean that it is something that we should apply to the entire country. Just because they allowed it doesn't make it a good point. Because if I said that I would allow smoking, does that mean it's healthy for me? No. So overall, our side wins this debate because we take into consideration that we have to end the pandemic. And in order for us to end the pandemic, we have to consider that people need time. And we have to not become an accessory to something that is so easily spread. Their trade-off of a slightly more conducive environment, pressuring medical students to become the saviors at this time, is not the answer. The answer right now is to take every single step, and for every person like you watching to stop doing unnecessary things and just accept the limitations of this time, because once we accept it, that is the only time where we can get out of this situation, and that is the only time of which we can actually be safe in the pandemic and go back to our regular lives. And with all that, my side is so proud to oppose.
Thank you, negative side. May we now listen to the rebuttal speech from the affirmative.
Honorable adjudicators, our worthy opponents, and our listeners, once again, good day. To be honest, I don't know where do I even start. Let me just start by stating the parameter again. Pursuant to the Interagency Task Force on Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases Omnibus Guidelines, the CHED and the DOH issued a joint memorandum circular in cognizance of the mandates of RA 11332, wherein public health authorities are given the statutory and regulatory authority to mandate responsive activities on the part of schools who are willing to assume the responsibilities for the reopening of their campuses based on their capability to comply with health and safety protocols. Now, we stated that it is not mandatory. To be honest, we have appendices from the JMC where it is stated there that we are not forcing students to actually go there and just join in the, just go there and have experience and observe. We actually stated as well that the opposing side actually stated that the health protocols are not enough. So it means, edi wag na tayong magsuot ng face mask and face shields. Wala naman palang kwenta. That is actually a bullet to the CHED, to the memorandum order itself. And it is according to the guidelines that they will not be operating. They will just have assistance, just what it is stated on the JMC. Now, they committed slippery slope wherein magdurusa ang teacher kapag flexible learning with face-to-face. How come? Is there even a valid source? It is opinionated. Most of their statements are opinionated wherein our parameter is factual firsthand. Now, they say that it is just a slightly conclusive learning. But the truth is we are badly needing a workforce for healthcare workers. Now, are the learning alternatives effective? They failed actually to answer that. Now, they stated that they are aware of the guidelines to be followed by face-to-face classes, but in return, they actually neglected and told that the guidelines were of no use. Then, of course, let me reiterate again that it is not mandatory for students. And to be honest, they have no relation to the parameters set by our side. There is a major hasty generalization that happened here. There were cases wherein they publicized every single detail. They actually included DepEd wherein we never actually mentioned that. Now, for the non-beneficiality, schools are not public places. They have rotations as stated on the Joint Memorandum Circular, wherein there are schedules for every student. Now, the beneficiality speaker is trying to make us do her job. Cite two disadvantages. Why would we do that? Now, there is a contingency plan in the case of COVID-19 transmission for students. However, to be honest, there is no source as of the moment when we actually have 24 universities operating to actually have the stated programs to be upheld. There are no cases of student transmission. Well, they are saying opinionated statements like, oh, there will be transmission and blah, 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 like that. Well, there are actually public places whom are actually riskier than the schools itself, which is handled by medical professionals and students. So edi pasara na lang pala natin lahat kung kailangan pala 100% safe tayo ngayon. Edi sana umuwi na lang tayong lahat, di ba? Schools are required to have an isolation room inside the campus. That is stated on the protocol, on the guidelines of the JMC as well. They have stated that they actually read it, but they lack knowledge regarding it. Now, we are specifying medical students, not students in general for the last time. Students in the medical field are actually expert in following health protocols because, as I have stated, who follows it better than them? Now, how is the protocol insufficient? They actually failed to cite something that is the solution of this. They stated that the protocol is inefficient. Why is it inefficient? What is the solution for that? Then they have committed, again, slippery slope, stating that the medical graduates are necessary to the worsening pandemic cases. We did not state that the medical students will be there to actually have the authority to operate onto the COVID-19 patients. It is stated in the JMC that there will be no contact. There will be no contact from them. Now, they are not aware that there are 50 health workers that are sent to Manila because of increasing COVID-19 cases. Just imagine how scarce our health workers are. Now, they cannot defend the point that the parameter is all about allied health courses rather than attacking the point na nandyan ang sakit. To be honest with you, their disagreements to the parameter is actually the same as true with disagreeing to CHED, to DOH, and the IATF itself. To prove the non-beneficiality speaker is wrong, medical students are considered frontliners. We actually have stated the source for that. Therefore, they are at the top of the primary bracket to have the interim source. Now, the second speaker, clinical trials. We pertain that depression and anxiety are common mental health experienced by university students. Of course, because we actually have sources for that. They are pointing about public places na nakakahawa. That is emphasized by the third speaker. Furthermore, in a school setting, you have restrictions. And again, they are not just students. They are medical workers. Now, the necessity speaker actually stated that we are actually there whispering and all of that. But what do these index cards mean? It means that we have been communicating with each other properly. These ones. Now, hindi nila magagawa na nakalagay sa Section 7D ng memorandum na magkakaroon ng clinical student shifting para malimitahan ang mag-aaral sa isang classroom. That is actually there. There are guidelines so that there will be no possible infection among students. Next. Again, they refuse to abide to the parameters.
Time's up, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, they have reached this far. And I have to tell you this, that both teams deserve to be champions. But at the end of the day, one will be declared as champion and will bring home trophy, medals, and of course, the cash prize. Aside from that, from this bout, we will be choosing the best speaker and best debater, which will likewise receive cash prizes. Okay. For two teams, Cauayan National and Our Lady of the Pillar colleges, congratulations.
Yes! Sa magandang tanghali po, lungsod ng Cauayan. Yan po, natungayan ho natin ang ating pong mga nagagalingan pong mga debaters mula po sa pamalaang lungsod ng Cauayan. Siyempre, yung inyo pong napanood po kanina ay yung ating pong mga debate team from Cauayan City National High School and of course, Our Lady of the Pilar College, Cauayan. Kaya naman po, once again, in behalf of the City Government of the City of Cauayan, sa pangunguna po ni Mayor Bernard D., ni Vice Mayor Bong Dalin, at kami pong mga city officials, ang aming pong taos-pusong pasasalamat at pagbati sa ating pong mga proud kabataang Cauayenyo na nakilahok po sa ating pong first inter-school debate competition. At syempre gusto rin nating pasalamatan muli ang ating pong mga kalahok sa ating pong finals, ang ating pong student from Cauayan City National High School, Maine, Our Lady of the Pilar College, Cauayan, Sillawit National High School, at ang Concepcion National High School, Baculod Extension. At ganoon din po, gusto rin ho nating pasalamatan ang ating pong mga executive and working committees ng 2021 Cauayan Festival, The New Normal. Siyempre sa pangunguna ng ating pong mahal at talaga naman pong kinikilala, hindi lamang po dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan, kundi sa buong bansang Pilipinas, ang ating pong outstanding and the honorary chairman ng ating pong Cauayan Festival, no other than Mayor Bernard Faustino MD. Bigyan naman ho natin ng virtual clap ng ating pong buthing mayor. And of course, ang ating pong Director General. Maraming salamat po, Director General Michael de Guzman Sr. Yan, napaka-successful po ang inyo pong directorship ngayon taon sa ating pong kapistahan. Ang ating pong Assistant Director General, the President of JCI Cauayan Bamboo and a member of the City Council, the Honorable Cesar J.C. D. Jr. At syempre yung ating pong mga city officials, syempre sa pangunguna ng ating pong Vice Mayor Bong Dalin, at 10 ng aming pong mga kasamaang city officials. And of course, syempre, ang ating pong celebration ngayong hapon ay hindi po maging successful without the support ng ating pong mga sponsors. Kaya gusto nating pasalamatan in behalf of the City of Cauayan and the Executive and Working Committees for this year's Cauayan. Gusto nating pasalamatan ang MyPercom, ang Multisis, TM, DNF Enterprises, LGU Cauayan, DepEd Cauayan, Isabela State University Cauayan Campus, Brigada News FM Cauayan, JCI Cauayan Bamboo, JCI Senate Isabela, PhilNorth TV Cagayan Valley, and CMD North Star Cable Vision. And of course, syempre gusto kong pasalamatan yung aming pong team na talaga naman pong kasama ho natin from the preparation up to the last day ng ating pong debate proper. Siyempre gusto natin pasalamatan Sir Narsal Forondang, ating pong moderator. Virtual applause naman sa kay Sir Narsal. And of course, yung aking pong mga staff, si Josa, si Ronald, and of course, Charles. Ang ating pong mga debate team from Isabela State University. Siyempre, ang ating pong technical, ang office po ni Attorney Rina Santos. Siyempre, nandito po si Bro Ian Dalog. Maraming salamat, Bro. And of course, Ma'am Mitch, and sa lahat ng mga staff ng Info Office ng City Government, maraming salamat po. And of course, ang aming pong Director Neil Semana, Direct Neil Film. Yan, thank you so much. Public address, and of course, ang ating pong DepEd Cauayan, na sila po yung nag-send ng ating pong kalahok para po sa ating pong inter-school debate competition this year. Siyempre sa pangunguna ni Dr. Alfredo B. Gumaru Jr. Alright, so this time, siyempre, alam ko na napakahirap po ang ginampanan ng ating pong mga judges, kaya bigyan naman ho natin ng token ng ating pong mga Board of Judges ngayong tanghaling ito. Siyempre, ang ating pong Vice President mula po sa Isabela State University. Palakpakan naman ho natin. Maraming salamat po. Even though today is holiday, pero nandito po kayo para po samahan po kami sa ating pong programa ngayong tanghaling ito. Siyempre, Dr. Boyet L. Batang, sir. Yan, ang ating pong Vice President po ng Isabela State University. Sir, maraming salamat po. At syempre, ang ating pong napakasipag na Assistant City Health Officer po natin dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan, Dr. Mary Christine Abogado Puruganan. Doc, thank you so much. Pakitanggap po yung aming pong konting token. Thank you so much, Doc. And of course, the Chairman of the Board of Judges, syempre ang ating pong kaibigan mula po sa bayan ng Alicia, ang ating pong Municipal Councilor, Attorney Jonathan B. Valiente. Thank you po. Thank you po. Okay. So are you guys ready sa ating pong announcement of winners? Yan po, pinapaabot na po ng ating pong secretary ang ating pong result ng ating pong competition ngayong tanghaling ito. At syempre ay nais po nating pasalamatan ang lahat ng ating pong mga schools na nag-compete po ngayong umagang ito. Syempre, ang una ho nating i-announce ay ang ating pong mga winner mula sa competing for the 3rd and 4th placer, the schools from Sillawit National High School and Villa Concepcion National High School, Baculod Extension. Okay, so ready na po ba kayo? Lungsod ng Cauayan, are you guys ready? Ready na po ba ang ating mga kabataang proud Cauayenyo? Sana nga lang nakinig po kayo, no? Sana nga lang po naka-tune in po kayo kanina para po nakita ho nyo kung gaano kagagaling ang ating pong mga mag-aaral dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan. Okay, so this time ay permado na po ng ating pong mga Board of Judges at ang aking pong i-announce ay ang nagkamit ng 3rd placer. Okay? So with the average score of halos unanimous po ang decision ng ating pong mga hurado. Siyempre, kasama na rin po ang ating pong Board of Moderator. Yan. Congratulations! Kayo po ang ating pong 4th placer for this year's 2021 Cauayan Festival in the New Normal. First, Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the final battle. Congratulations! You're the 4th placer. From Sillawit National High School. Our debater is from Sillawit National High School. Our debater is from Sillawit National High School. Of course, we have here Homer D. Evangelista, Delmar Tangankyo, and Marie Chris Causo, Yoli B. Ignacio, and of course, Christine H. De La Cruz. And their coach, Mr. Romel S. Domingo, and their school principal, Madam Vilma C. Corpus. Sir. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, our fourth placer, Sillawit National High School. How about the virtual applause, ladies and gentlemen? And now, ladies and gentlemen, our third placer in this first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-Debate Competition. Congratulations from Villa Concepcion National High School, Baculod Extension. The debaters are the following: Crizal May Acop, Robert Pasada Jr., Trisha Jane Rina Blas, Jester Andres, Rodrigo Aguinaldo, their coach, Sheila May Pagulayan, Jonah May Agtarap, Corazon Omnes, and of course, our school principal, Mr. Christopher Duran. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the debaters team from Villa Concepcion National High School, Baculod Extension, our third placer in this first inter-school debate competition. How about a virtual applause, ladies and gentlemen? Yan po, palapit na po tayo sa ating pong champion. I-announce ko na po ang ating pong second placer. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's 2021 Cauayan Festival, first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the final battle. Permado po ng ating pong mga Board of Judges, of course, and our second placer with average score of 89.67%. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's first inter-school debate competition, second placer goes to Cauayan City National High School! Our debaters from Cauayan City National High School, Desiree A. Quaresma, Cody, Nicole, and Wee, Athena May R. Lucas, Aaron Pixel G. Kalimag, Mark Angelo B. Agustin, their coach, Renz Ian Dacuron, Belly Jake S. Manuel, Cheryl D. Bakiran, and the school principal, Dr. Primitivo Argorospe. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this year's first or second placer in this first inter-school debate competition, the students from Cauayan City National High School Main Campus. Excited na po ba kayo? Ako po ay excited na. Kanina pa po ako excited na excited. And of course, gusto nating pasalamatan ang ating pong mga member of the Board of Judges, our city officials, our executive committee for this year's Gawa-Gawayan, and of course, the DepEd, Isabela State University, at sa lahat po na nakiisa at nakasama na ho namin ngayong umaga sa ating pong inter-school debate competition, the finals. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our grand winner for the 2021 Gawa-Gawayan Festival, first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the finals, the grand champion from the School of Our Lady of the Pilar College, Cauayan! There you have them, our debater, Casmira Ruhini Turia, Carrie Ann Garcia, Kathleen Grace Jacob, Kian Carr Vincent Mauricio, Kevin Robert Pilar Jr., and of course their coach Joel P. Bembo and Christine May Mercado. And of course our school principal, Madam Loida Maria L. Bautista, and of course our president, Dr. Exupio June Flores. There you have the ladies and gentlemen, this year's champion sa ating pong first inter-school debate competition. The Our Lady of the Pilar College. And now, our two special awards. Who will be our best speaker and best debater? Ito kaya ay mapupunta sa team ng Cauayan City National High School Main Campus? Virtual applause naman po. Or will it be the students from Our Lady of the Pilar College, Cauayan? Pwede po bang straight line tayo dito para naman medyo mas maganda? Then please observe our social distancing. And now, I will now announce the winner for our best speaker. This year's 2021 Gawa-Gawayan Festival, first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition, the finals. The best speaker goes to from the team from, congratulations, you'll be the best speaker, Carrie Ann Garcia from Our Lady of the Pilar College, Cauayan. And now, our last special award, the best of the best, the best debater. Congratulations! You're the first or best debater for this year's first Mayor Bernard Faustino MD Inter-School Debate Competition. From the School of... Congratulations! You're the best debater! Kashmira Ruhini Duria from Our Lady of the Pilar College. There you have them, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations to Cauayan City National High School Main Campus and Our Lady of the Pilar for being our first champion or grand winner sa ating pong first inter-school debate competition dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan. So with that, in behalf of the city government of the city of Cauayan, through our city mayor Bernard D., Vice Mayor Leon Siobong Dalin, and members of the city council, the executive and working committees for the Cauayan Festival led by Mr. Michael De Guzman Sr. and Councilor JCD, and of course, our debate team, Sir Nar Salporonda, the members of the Board of Judges, sa inyo pong lahat. Ako po ang inyong pong lingkod, si Councilor Gary Galotera. Muli, sana makakasama niyo muli ako sa susunod na episode ng ating pong Inter-School Debate Competition dito po sa lungsod ng Cauayan. So with that, maraming salamat. Mabuhay ang kabataang proud Cauayenyo. Mabuhay lungsod ng Cauayan. Happy Gawa-Gawayan Festival 2021. Maraming salamat po. God bless. Yan yung mga gustong maki-picture.